It is Wednesday. For some people, it is Friday. Thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Thank you again for joining us. A lot has happened this morning. I know we just started the afternoon, but a lot has happened. A lot has happened, you guys. We actually had extended coverage on Live Impact News just an hour ago. Yeah. So I joke when I walked into the studio back like we never left, because I don't think we really left. But busy, I should say. And I want to ask the crew, how are you guys doing? Carlene, James, how are you guys doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. James, how are you doing?
It's my Friday. I'm one of those people.
That's who I was talking about. You and Becca.
I'm not trying to rub it in. I'm just
no, he is.
bringing
he
the
is.
conversation full circle.
He is. It's fine. It is fine. It's fine. Tomorrow is my Friday, so I will rejoice then. But again, we have a lot happening this afternoon. And the first big story that we want to get to is a story that we brought you during our extended coverage during our morning stream. It is the Sean Diddy Combs verdict. We got a verdict this morning, and what we learned and what we know now, the jury convicted Combs of 2 counts in his sex trafficking trial. Let me get specific about this. Sean Diddy Combs was acquitted of racketeering and sex trafficking charges today, and was found guilty on 2 lesser charges of transportation of former girlfriends for prostitution. Now, the verdict is seen as a victory for Combs, who was cleared of the most serious charges against him. His defense team opted not to call witnesses before resting their case. We actually have an update from NBC News. Let's take you there right now.
The verdict is in, and it is split. Count 1, not guilty on RICO conspiracy. Count 2, not guilty on sex trafficking as it pertains to Cassie Ventura. Count 3, guilty as it pertains to Cassie Ventura for the transportation to engage in prostitution. Count 4, not guilty, sex trafficking as it pertains to Jane. Count 5, guilty, transportation to engage in prostitution as it pertains to Jane. This is a stunning legal victory for Combs's legal team. It is a massive blow to New York prosecutors who had this trial over the last 7 weeks and brought 34 witnesses. When the verdict was read, Combs got on his knees and he did a prayer sign. He began to pray, and he did the symbol of prayer signs to the jurors. His family began to clap, and just moments ago we saw his family and his mother leave. Now, here's the thing. He could actually be released from prison today. This is an argument that's going on right now between New York prosecutors and Combs's legal team, and the judge is set to make a decision sometime today.
All right, so that is the latest in this trial that has come to an end. So some of the things we're following: one, if Diddy will actually get a chance to come home as we await sentencing, and also a sentencing date. So there's that. We'll continue to keep an eye and continue to track on that. That's a live look outside of the federal courthouse there in New York City. All right, so we want to take you now to some more breaking news that we are following this time. Pebblestone Drive. This is off East Independence Boulevard there. I believe this is in Southeast Charlotte, if I'm seeing this correct.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So we do know, according to medic, 2 people were pronounced dead at the scene. That's all we know. 2 dead in Southeast Charlotte, Pebblestone Drive. There in Southeast Charlotte off East Independence Boulevard. As soon as we get more information, we'll get back to it. But again, this is a map. This is a general area of where first responders, where police, where the scene is. So again, we'll get back to that in just a moment. But I just want to reiterate, 2 people dead in Southeast Charlotte. A story that we actually have a reporter and photographer on the way. And as soon as we get their shot up, we'll take you there live. All right, so let's make a hard pivot, guys. I'm sorry to do this, but this is what happens on Live Impact News. We want to talk about the weather because a lot of folks are traveling. Today is a big travel day. A lot of folks are leaving. I think James is one of those people that are leaving
straight from work.
I put in James on the spot today. He didn't.
He said, I can't wait.
I'm ready. Let's go.
We have Becca Bursall in, who is not leaving. Are you leaving today too?
No, I'm leaving tomorrow.
Okay. I'm not
Can't wait to get out of here.
Yes.
But first, we need to check on the forecast before you leave.
No, for sure. We've got one more round
Okay.
of rain before
Oh,
a
yeah.
drying trend takes over from Thursday all the way through this weekend. Lower dew points, still going to be hot, but it's going to feel a lot more comfortable out there. Now, you'll notice today is a cloudier, it's a cooler day. We got a couple of downpours over there, as you can see from our camera up in Lylesville. This is in Anson County, courtesy of our Mr. Sparky Carolina Cam Network. Here is a Doppler radar showing those pop-up showers and thunderstorms now setting up closer into the Charlotte metro area. So I want to go ahead and zoom in on that coverage. This is mainly impacting the northwestern part of Mecklenburg County all the way into southern Gaston, now extending over to portions of York and Chester. You can see some of those darker reds. That is briefly heavy downpours. In addition, got a couple of downpours now setting up over towards Rockingham, all drifting up to the east. So for today, best rain coverage is going to be from the Charlotte area towards the southeast, where we do have that low excessive rainfall impact. Again, just like yesterday, slow moving downpours could create some localized flooding conditions, just like what we saw in the high country. Futurecast showing a couple more rain and thunderstorms potentially as we head towards this afternoon, just not going to be widespread. And by 9 o'clock tonight, most of us will have completely dried out. A few areas of patchy dense fog might develop for the first part of Thursday for our most southern counties. That will dissipate. Lots of sunshine expected. Other than a rogue stray shower in the forecast, only about a 10% chance on your Thursday. That is all the rain coverage we have. And of course, the Charlotte Knights do have their big sky show happening Thursday night after the game. It's going to be mostly clear, definitely on the muggier side with temperatures near 80 degrees, but should be great conditions for that sky show. You can see that cold front. That's what brought the rain and thunderstorms yesterday. That will continue to sink down to the south. Behind it is going to be featuring lots of drier air, but you'll notice that front does stall over towards the Florida Panhandle. And again, that is the area that the National Hurricane Center is watching for potential tropical cyclone development if a coastal low does develop. Now does have a 40% chance of tropical cyclone development as we head towards your 4th of July weekend. If something does form, that would be the third named storm of the season, with the next name on the list, Chantel. Regardless, though, it is going to be bringing lots of rainfall over towards some of those Gulf Coast states. Live view over our Dallas camera, it is 81 with a dew point of 73, feels like 86, so that is still lots of muggy air. High temperatures today will soar into the upper 80s, but factoring in the humidity and those dew points in the 70s, it's still going to be feeling closer to about 95, again with those rain chances tapering off by late tonight. You'll notice, like I mentioned, high temperatures below 90 degrees for the first time in over 2 weeks. So we had our heat streak going with consecutive high temperatures, 90 degrees or above. Yesterday marked day number 13, but it's looking like today that is in jeopardy, as high temperatures won't make it to 90 today, but they will make it to 90 by the time we get to your Thursday. And that's pretty much where we're going to stay as we head through the weekend and the next week ahead, just a few degrees above the normal high for this time of year. Again, rain chances trending down as we head towards the end of the work week, only about a 10 to 20% chance as we head through your holiday weekend with those dew points in the 60s. That is going to be nice, refreshing, dry air for your 4th of July. Start to finish should be fantastic. High temperatures in the lower 90s with minimal rain chances. So 7-day forecast. Again, a couple of lingering showers today. Those will dry out late tonight as that front actually pushes off. Should actually see maybe some sunshine breakout towards 5-6 o'clock tonight. By the time we get into Thursday, tons of sunshine to go around. This will continue all the way through the weekend. Very minimal rain chances in the forecast. Should be great conditions for any 4th of July activities, as well as Charlotte FC. They have not been home in I believe 2 or 3 weeks now, so
Wow.
that will be a big game.
Yeah, a big game, big weekend. A lot is happening. Man.
Absolutely. You know what? Couldn't ask for better weather.
Better
For
wow.
July.
For July, I know,
July
right? And
standards.
it did. Although it was raining this morning when I got up and went to the gym, it was it felt great.
It felt fantastic.
I'm not a big rain guy, but I'm like I'm glad we have this.
Yeah, definitely something to appreciate, especially after the last week.
Well, Becca, we will see you in the next hour. Thank
Sounds
you for
good.
joining us. All right, so that is a look. Hopefully you guys have everything planned out for this weekend, for the 4th, and that you guys has some maybe a plan B, maybe just in case. I don't know. I always say have a plan A, have a plan B, just in case. All right, so we want to get back now to a big story that we've been following here on the stream, and honestly, it's dominated the headlines everywhere you look. We're talking about the Sean Diddy Combs trial. So we have a conviction, we have a verdict. So convicted of 2 counts, or I guess 2 of the charges. So count 1, not guilty on racketeering conspiracy. Count 2, sex trafficking. Not guilty. Those are the 2 big major crimes where he could have faced life in prison.
Right.
Count 3, transportation to engage in prostitution. He was found guilty. Count 4, sex trafficking. Another count of sex trafficking, not guilty. And count 5, transportation to engage in prostitution. He was found guilty. Again, we got a lot of reaction and a lot of things happening outside that courthouse after that verdict came down. We actually heard from Cassie Ventura, Diddy's ex-girlfriend, who is testified in this case and a big part of this case as well. Her surveillance video of a domestic violence incident involving her and Diddy leaked last year, which sort of was a snowball effect with this case and everything has come out. We actually heard from her attorney moments after that verdict was read. Let's take a listen in. I believe this is Doug Wigdor, the lawyer for Cassie. Let's take a listen in.
Responsible for something, which is something that hasn't happened in his lifetime. And, we're hopeful that ultimately he receives a substantial sentence for what he's done. And, we're pleased that Cassie's brought to light everything that has happened in this trial. I just spoke with her and with the U.S. Attorney's Office team. And she's in a good place. She's pleased that, again, that the jury has found him liable, guilty of 2 federal crimes.
What was her reaction?
And I've issued a statement as well on our Twitter as well. Her reaction is what I just said. Her reaction was that she was pleased that he's been found guilty and held responsible of 2 federal crimes, something that he's never been held responsible in his entire life. And she's happy that in November of 2023 she came forward and shined a light on this and brought other people forward who have various civil claims, and so we'll see what happens with the sentencing. All right?
Counselor,
thank you very much.
That looking at this direction, you said that same thing. Sorry.
Oh, I can't repeat it again, but
yeah, please.
Sorry. So, what was the question?
Your reaction to what happened.
The reaction is that we're pleased that he's finally been held responsible for 2 federal crimes, something that he's never faced in his life. He still faces substantial jail time. Of course, we would have liked to have seen a conviction on the sex crimes in RICO, but we understand beyond a reasonable doubt is a high standard, and we're just pleased that he still faces substantial jail time. All right, thank you.
Counselor,
Thank you very much.
how much time?
Doug Wigdor, Wigdor. Well, each is faces up to 10 years on each. I'm not sure what the sentencing guidelines are given the various government and the defense to argue, but I feel confident in saying he still faces substantial incarceration.
How will you feel if he walks out on bail?
Well, that's up to the judge. I don't have a personal vested interest in this case. Whatever the appropriate thing to do under the law is what should be done. And at the end of the day, he needs to be sentenced pursuant to the guidelines and pursuant to what the law is. My understanding of that is that he faces significant. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that was Doug Wigdor. He is the attorney representing Cassie Ventura. And as you heard there, told reporters outside the courthouse that his team is pleased that Combs has, quote, finally been held accountable. And so inside the courtroom, it's a federal court. So how federal court works, you can't have a camera inside. We've been seeing sketches of Diddy's appearance, of what it looks like inside the courtroom, but the reporters obviously are allowed in the courtroom, so we're able to get sort of a play-by-play of what's been happening, and we've been reading a lot of that play-by-play as it's been happening inside court within moments after it happens inside court. So one of the things, so after the verdict was read, this is what happened. Now, Combs's family rejoiced after the verdict. And so let me read this post from NBC News. So when asked how his father was feeling, Combs' son, Christian, said, quote, great, and his daughters added, quote, good, happy. As Comey is the prosecutor in this case, explained, Combs could serve up to 20 years. The family's joy faded slightly, although they still looked happy as they left the court. Quote, thank you, love you, Combs told his loved ones in court as he was led away for at least a few more hours in custody. We're still we are still awaiting to find out if he will stay in court or stay in jail in custody as he awaits sentencing, or will he be able to go home with his family? So again, a lot happening outside the courtroom moments after that verdict. There's still folks outside that courtroom right now. This is a live look outside of the federal courthouse. And when I say a lot, I mean, there are reactions. There are people who were celebrating this verdict. There are people who were not celebrating this verdict. And there, obviously, you have the dozens of media outlets there. We actually heard from one woman who was outside the courtroom moments after the verdict. Here's what she had to say.
First and last name?
First and last name?
Yep,
my name is Jamie, Jamie. Last name is Caradine, Caradine.
So Jamie, why have you been so interested in, you've been here many days, haven't you?
I absolutely have. I've been here at least 3 days out of each week.
And why is that?
I've been here because I follow trials. I've been following trials for a good amount of time. I actually just got off the YSL trial in Atlanta for 2 years, following Brian Steele, watching him do what he does best. And I believe in fairness of trials. I believe that every person that walks this earth in the United States have the right for a fair trial. I believe that people should not be overcharged. And I felt like this was a trial where this guy was overcharged, so I wanted to be here to just watch the process, to watch how the government puts their trial on, to watch how the defense defends their client, and to watch how the jurors make their decisions.
And so what did you think about what just happened?
What I think about what just happens is the jurors stood up for what was right. Because I honestly believe that he was overcharged. I'm not a P. Diddy fan. I actually went into this trial thinking he was guilty. Thinking he was absolutely guilty based on the things that I have heard. And from the first day, from the first 3 witnesses, starting with the security guard to Cassie, it just made me realize that there was something more going on here. And I feel like they should have charged him for what he was guilty of. And what he was guilty of was domestic abuse and assault. That's what I seen anyway with my own 2 eyes with the Intercontinental video.
And just for my own curiosity, are you a citizen journalist then? Do you?
I am not a journalist. I'm just a regular public person. I'm actually from Pennsylvania. Like I said, I've been interested in trials for a long time. And with it being this close to me, I could not miss the opportunity. I drove 3.5 hours each day, each way, to come and watch this in person. And I'm so glad that I did.
Do you have a hard time believing the women, believing Cassie, believing Jane Doe?
I had a hard time believing them due to the fact there was a lot of drugs involved. They were in a relationship with him, and not just they were in a relationship with him, because one time means no. One time is sufficient for no. But when they were on the stand, they admitted to doing these things willingly. They even set these things up as a gift to him. And so I couldn't come in my mind, in terms in my mind, to think, how can you find him guilty for something that they offered as a gift at one point in time? And so I don't think that the juries could get past that. Now, they did get past that when it came to the prostitution, because at the end of the day, lines were crossed, state lines were crossed. There were escorts that were brought, and they did have sex. for the purpose of, based on what they're saying, they had sex for that purpose. So I'm not sure if that's something they could have gotten around.
Jamie, thank you. Thanks, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.
And again, that was a reaction from a woman there outside the courtroom after the verdict was read. And right now we're up against a deadline. So the judge gave the prosecution a few hours to write a letter stating their case to deny Combs bail based on the Mann Act conviction. That deadline is 1 p.m. The prosecutor asked for a few hours to prepare their argument. This was this morning after the verdict was read. And the judge agreed to take submissions on the matter from both the government and defense at 1 p.m. So that's the deadline. I don't know if we will actually hear anything from inside the courtroom or get some reporting from inside the courtroom at that point, but that is the deadline that the prosecution and defense is up against there. And this is a live look. It looks like
Wait,
go ahead.
ask. We haven't heard like a deadline for the judge to have to make a decision. The judge gave the prosecution, hey, we'll give you a couple of hours to give me your reasoning.
Yeah, I'm looking, scrolling through.
I don't believe we've heard it.
We actually have a new sketch of Combs from inside the courtroom after the verdict was read on NBC's website.
Yes.
If you want me to kind of stall a little bit as we get that, but yeah. So basically, and just to paint you the picture from inside the courtroom before you see that image, Combs was on his knees in the courtroom with his head down in a chair, seemingly praying after avoiding life in prison on the highest charges in this case. This is the picture right here. This is this is the sketch from inside the courtroom. Again, with federal court, you can't have cameras inside. That is a sketch. This is NBC News's website, but this is a look at what is being described, or what I described as Combs, again, on his knees in the courtroom with his head down in the chair, seemingly praying after avoiding life in prison on the highest charges in his case. He also hugged his lawyer. So that is a scene there, and that is a live look outside of the courthouse. All right, so we're going to continue to keep an eye as things develop with this trial and with this case. So let's shift away. We want to, I guess, stick to the legal realm of things and talk about a case a lot closer to home, the Elisa Baker case. So she is set to be released from state prison today before being sent to federal prison. So she is set to be released from state prison today before being sent to federal prison. She was sentenced to 15 to 18 years for killing and dismembering her 10-year-old stepdaughter with disabilities, Zahara Baker. I think I'm saying that correctly. Zahara Baker. Thank you. Now, Zahara was reported missing from her home in Hickory in the fall of 2010. Weeks later, investigators found her remains in multiple sites around Hickory. Elisa Baker was sentenced in September 2011. We had coverage on this morning during our newscast, our early morning stream, and some good perspective there, because Richard Devane was here covering that case at the time. Also, Ben Thompson was here, and they were able to add some perspective with this reporting. So let's take a listen in to some of that.
It was that first day that we heard about it. We were up here in Hickory outside the police station. At that time, a man walked out, and I asked him about this situation. Did he know anything about it? He told me he was Zara's dad, Adam. We spoke to him for a few minutes off camera. He said he knew nothing. He was later not charged, but his wife, Zara's stepmother, Elisa Baker, was. Today, she is being transferred from a jail, a prison, I should say, in Polkton, and she will be transferred into federal custody to serve out another charge on drug possession. But today we think about Zara, whose face you see right there, the young girl, 10 years old, from Hickory. She was reported missing in October of 2010. She was born in Australia, and her dad came here to America. She faced numerous challenges in her young life, including she lost her leg and a part of her hearing to a disease. Then one day she went missing. It was reported, they searched for her, couldn't find her. Her mother eventually was arrested and charged with her in her disappearance. She later pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and as well as other charges. She was sentenced, that's Elisa Baker, to 18 years in prison. That case led to widespread calls for child welfare reform, highlighting the need for stronger protections of children who were vulnerable at the times. Baker's memory, of course, all over. People say they'll never forget the young girl whose face they only saw, fortunately, through a couple of media captures on video, but she captured the hearts of so many people. As we come back here live, we can tell you this is the park that was named for her, Czar Baker's Park. This is at Kiwanis Field right here in Hickory. It's a place where children who have certain limitations, disabilities, can come and enjoy themselves. It's a playground for all children to come and enjoy. Just one of the things people in Hickory say they'll never forget. People around saying they'll never forget. Now, again, her mother is going into federal custody now.
All right, so that was some of the reporting this morning on that case. Again, Elisa Baker leaving state prison, being sent to federal prison. All right, so let's get now to the House floor. So this is a live look at the House floor. The House is expected to, or I'm assuming so. I don't know, Carlene, if you guys were able to get into this. According to NBC News, they were supposed to vote this morning on a rule for floor consideration for President Trump's so-called big. Okay, so that happened. All right, so this all comes, and this is happening as it's right there for House lawmakers to vote on, to consider, and then we're talking about the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, President Trump's domestic policy package. That has divided a lot of lawmakers. It was a razor-thin margin when it passed the Senate on yesterday. So let's listen in to what's happening right now.
Carolina, with 4 3/4 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, people who have supported the Democrat Party policies for years cannot come to this floor and question the morality of Republicans. President Trump has his pen in hand and is waiting for the House to complete its work. We've championed this legislation for months, have guided it through the appropriate processes, and we're on the 1-yard line. America deserves to move even further into the golden age. H.R. 1 unlocks the opportunity to do that. It's time to get this done. Let's be crystal clear about the content of this historic bill. We're restoring our borders, once left defenseless and without redress. We're protecting our great nation by investing in our military and military families. We're preserving tax cuts that made the United States economy the envy of the world just 8 years ago. And we're reviving our nation's fiscal outlook by finally cutting wasteful spending and unleashing our economy from harmful restraint. Restore, protect, preserve, revive. And the failure to act would yield only the opposite. Our Democrat colleagues would tear down the border walls and return us to open border policies. They would have us oversee a continued decline in our military readiness, despite unprecedented theaters of global conflict. They would destroy our economy in their unending appetite for continued tax increases to feed their spending binges. The choice is clear. we must deliver. We must deliver a renewed, restored, revived nation and grant voters the America they stood for just 8 months ago. In a moment, I will offer an amendment to the rule which would correct a technical error in the rule. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on the previous question, yes on the amendment, and yes on the rule. Mr. Speaker, I offer an amendment to the resolution.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to House Resolution 566, offered by Ms. Fox of North Carolina. At the end of the resolution, add the following. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the motion to its adoption without intervening motion.
Gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back the balance of my time and move the previous question on the amendment and on the resolution.
The question is on ordering the previous question on the amendment on the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
I ask for the yeas and nays and a hearing aid for you.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. Sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on ordering the previous question will be followed by 5-minute votes on adoption of the amendment offered by the gentlelady from North Carolina, Ms. Fox, if ordered, and adoption of the resolution, if ordered. This is a 15-minute vote.
All right, so we have a little bit of a lull because they're voting right now on the House floor. But again, the big conversation and debate happening is the so-called one big beautiful bill, that President Trump's spending bill. He calls it that, and many Republican leaders call it that as well. But that is the conversation they're voting on. From what I'm reading on ordering the previous question, again, we kind of dipped into this midway through some of that debate. So we'll come back to that once we sort this out. Do we want to get to Brad, James?
I think we can go there for a minute.
Okay, so let's pivot. Let's make another pivot. So I've often heard Brad talk about this.
Yep. It's a passion.
It is. I think it is a passion. Basically, not having your blinkers on when it rains, and I see it a lot. I didn't know if you see it so much here that you think that that's like the rule, that's the standard, but it's not. So again, if you know Brad Panovich, he's said it on TV before. He gives a great warning for folks, especially when it rains. And when it rains, it adds a different element of traffic and ickiness outside on the road. So some really helpful advice during our weather impact stream at 6:30, which you have to tune in every weekday night at 6:30. You get Brad, you get our weather impact team giving us this perspective. So let's listen in. Again, blinkers on, hazards on. When it did I say blinkers?
You said blinkers.
Blinkers, hazards, flashers.
It's, okay. Is there? I have a question, but we'll talk about this as this Brad. Let's listen to Brad.
We got that Greenville, South Carolina DOT cam. Ooh, James, that is not the fun stuff to drive. And
no, matter of fact, we have this wider shot. You can see all of the headlights. Southbound is going.
Look at the hazards.
Do not use your hazards.
My biggest pet peeve right there. I was just going to say, I can't believe people don't have their hazards on.
The visibility in this shot, Brad, is just gone. I bet you if we come back to it before the end of the show.
So leave that up for a second.
Sure.
So why do we rant about turning our blinkers on? Look at the right side. Look at those people with the hazards on. Notice how the lights go off every couple seconds. It's harder to see your car when it has the hazards on. A steady light is easier to see. It's scientifically proven, guys, okay? Think about it. A steady light is on longer than a blinking light. Blinking does draw attention. So don't think a visibility is the same as attention. The other thing about blinking lights like that is oftentimes people think you're stalled or pulling over or something's wrong, and they're going to slam their brakes on, which can cause an accident. So in North and South Carolina, there is no law that says you shouldn't have your flashers on in heavy rain, in many other states, including Florida, but it is advised not to do it. So please, wipers on, lights on. That's the best thing you could do. Don't turn your hazards on, just turn your lights on. But that's a prime example of just how bad it is out there.
Look at the sea of flashing lights.
Yeah, and look how annoying that is. I mean, if you're driving, it's hard to judge distance. That's the other thing about flashing lights. It makes it harder to judge depth perception. You can't tell how far away or close something is, which in poor visibility is kind of an important thing. So that's the storm we're watching right now, moving through the upstate. Real heavy rain right along 85, and yeah, that's bad news. So that's always a pretty slow section of 85 anyways, and you could just imagine. I mean, again, this is a great example. You can see headlights. I can see every one of those cars, those flashing lights. The visibility is just worse. Imagine if those were all steady lights. It'd be a lot easier to see. The other thing about having your flashers on, it disables your turn signals. So I'd have no idea what lane you're in or where you're going. So just think about that. In many cases, it's better just to have your lights on. So maybe someday, James, we'll have a law in North. Ooh, that was a pretty good lightning strike in North and South Carolina for that not to happen, because it does cause just all kinds of travel issues. And again, I know everyone's mind's in the right spot. They're thinking, I want people to see me. The problem is you're confusing people. That's not what that hazard light was meant for. And it confuses other people. It's like turning your right turn signal on, saying, I'm going to turn it on, but I'm going to go left. When your hazard's on, you're telling all the other drivers something completely different than what you think you're telling them. So just be careful. Please leave the hazards off. Just turn your lights on.
Some good advice there from Brad. And you don't want to miss perspective discussions like this. And it comes on right after our show. So it's no excuse to not have WCNC Plus on, right?
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Have it on. Keep us on all day, because right after our 6 o'clock newscast, live weather impact on WCNC Plus starts at 6:30.
Right.
So really, no excuse. You get good perspective, good in-depth discussion from Brad. Stuff that you can get some of that on the newscast, but you really get into the weeds of things here on live weather impact. James is on live weather impact.
I was going to say I'm biased, but you should definitely tune in.
I mean, James acts like he's a producer of the show. But no, it's great stuff that they're doing there and the team is doing there. All right, so we want to shift now to a live look in Idaho, because we are awaiting, this is a live look at the, am I saying this right? Ada County Courthouse? Well, this is in Idaho, so we're awaiting this to start. Brian Kohlberger, who was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary in the November 2022 fatal stabbings of 4 University of Idaho students at an off-campus house. Opening statements were set to begin on August 18th after months of delay over the evidence. But it looks like right now Kohlberger, who is 30 years old now, appears ready to avoid the trial and accept a plea of guilty as part of a potential deal that would drop the death penalty in exchange for a life sentence and waiving his right to appeal. So again, we are waiting for that to start. And as soon as that starts, we will take you there as soon as we can. All right, so let's talk a little bit Charlotte Hornets. Let's talk some Charlotte Hornets stuff. All right, so I think I'm happy with what the Charlotte Hornets have done so far this offseason. So we have a decent draft. We have a guy like Con Knipple. We have a guy like Trey Mann coming back. We have Mason Plumlee that was signed. Colin Sexton from Utah in a trade. I think I'm liking what the Hornets are kind of doing here. So we had a great discussion on Hornets free agency here on Live Impact News. Hey, Carlene.
Hi.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Let's take you there now to that discussion with Colin Mayfield and Nick Carboni.
There's been a flurry of news from the NBA over the last couple of days. Obviously, last week we had an awesome draft special on Wednesday. If you haven't watched it, go back on WCNC Plus and check it out with Nick Carboni and a host of other characters. But, man, the Hornets have been wheeling and dealing. And honestly, these last couple of moves could really shore up their roster. Pat Connaughton, even seeing Mason Plumlee coming back. So we'll bring in sports director Nick Carboni. And, Nick, man, they've just been going at it in terms of trying to add people to this roster. What are your first thoughts?
Well, Hornets president of basketball operations, Jeff Peterson, has said multiple times since he got here, including this offseason, that the franchise is not going to skip steps to get where it ultimately wants to go. And where it ultimately wants to go is a stated goal of premier franchise in the NBA, but also to the playoffs consistently, not just 1 year and out the next year. So he says they don't want to skip steps. Now, what he didn't say is that they don't want to take steps forward. And I think that's what you're seeing here. The team won only 19 games last season. The way the NBA is structured with the draft lottery and where you land if you have a bad season or where you're, likely to land, a lot of teams would look at that and say, let's win 15 next year and get another top 5 pick. But the Hornets are clearly looking to at least start to put some pieces in place around LaMelo Ball, around Brandon Miller, and then hope for their health this season to get a true evaluation of where they are at and what types of moves they need to make next year. And the other thing I will say about these recent moves with Jeff Peterson, including on draft night, is if you don't got picks coming with players, don't call me. Because there are so many times when you look at the report initially and it says player X and player Y, and also 2 picks or 1 pick or whatever it is, and you're thinking, okay, the Hornets are sending a pick back. But it's always been the Hornets are getting picks and acquiring more picks, and I believe they entered draft night with 8 first-round picks over 6 seasons. So they continue to add to that cachet. This particular transaction that we're talking about for guard forward Pat Connaughton from the Bucks, they get 2 second-round picks, future seconds from Milwaukee, and all they part with is Vasilije Micic, who they traded for on draft night as a salary match, a guy who used to play here and was never going to play here this season under head coach Charles Lee. So they essentially took a guy that wasn't going to play here, flipped him for a plug-and-play role player in Connaughton, and got 2 future second-round picks. And people look and say, oh, they're for 2031, 2032. Well, those chips are probably going to be cashed sooner than that.
Yeah, I mean, they have really added a lot of. I mean, Connaughton himself, he adds another depth in terms of shooter, right? Does plays pretty good defense as well. And then you cannot forget the 2 picks from draft night. I mean, honestly, this team, although it seems to be young, as you said, as long as the injury bug doesn't bite, could have a real chance to make some noise, don't you think?
There was so much pressure on LaMelo Ball here and he came in here in 2020 in that draft as the 3rd overall pick. Everybody knew he could pass. Everybody kind of assumed he couldn't shoot. Well, it turns out he can, but they had to rely on that, and he relied on it a little too much in the last couple of seasons when he's been healthy. Now you've got Con Knippel. Hopefully Liam McNeely can spread the floor. Pat Connaughton, a guy that can spread the floor. Colin Sexton was a massive pickup via trade over the weekend that also included a pick coming to Charlotte, and they part ways with center Yusuf Nurkic. Center is now a position of clear need. If you're over 6 feet tall and living in the city of Charlotte, you may get a call from your Charlotte Hornets right now. We can talk about that in a bit. But point is, they want guys to surround LaMelo Ball, to be able to spread the floor and to make plays with the ball and off the ball for him. And it all leads up to a very important season for this franchise and franchise player to see if it's going to work beyond 25 and 26.
I know you haven't seen these guys play yet with this new roster, but just looking at them on paper, what are some weaknesses and some strengths that you're already seeing that jump out at you?
Yeah, so I mean, start with the negative. Really, when you go offense in round 1 on draft night, you are eschewing kind of the defensive possibilities and improvement that you could have made. Now, if Philadelphia hadn't selected VJ Edgecombe with the 3rd overall pick, I almost have no doubt that the Charlotte Hornets would have taken him because he's got offensive upside, but already comes in as a really good defender. So when you're taking somebody like Con Knipple, he's somebody that people say, offensively, he can do it all. Defensively.
All right, so that is a great discussion there with Nick Carboni and Colin Mayfield during our stream yesterday evening on the Hornets free agency. It's been a frenzy. I think they've been doing some great things there. I got my eye on the Charlotte Hornets this upcoming season. All right, so we want to shift back now to Idaho, where Brian Kohlberger, the man accused of fatally stabbing 4 college students in Idaho, appears ready to accept a deal to plead guilty in connection with the killings. One victim's family and their attorney said that early this week on Monday. Kaylee Gonclave's family said they learned about the apparent deal in a letter from prosecutors, according to a statement. Now, the family said on Facebook in an updated statement that they gave a, quote, hard no after prosecutors broached the possibility of a plea deal before prosecutors eventually emailed them about the deal on Sunday. So again, we expected to hear Brian Kohlberger enter that plea deal in court. We have a live look of the courtroom, and here's the judge. He's speaking right now. I know it's our content partners, but do you know the specific content partner there, James?
KTPB, KGW, and a whole slew of Tegna West Coast stations are covering this right now.
All right, let's take a listen to that.
Have their cases processed, and frankly, as important, if not more so, for victims to have their cases processed in those cases. It's also highly inappropriate. A court is not supposed to, and this court will never, take into account public sentiment in making an opinion regarding its judicial decisions in cases. Courts should, and I always will, make decisions based on where the facts and the law lead me, period. I have not read any of the numerous messages nor listened to any of the numerous voicemails that have been sent to me and my staff. Those have all been forwarded to security and, where appropriate, to law enforcement. I ask that you not continue to mount such campaigns or to send me information like this because, again, it is not appropriate and, frankly, not something I would take into account when deciding a matter in a case like this. I also want people to understand some very basic concepts about the ideas of separation of powers and what the court's duties are and what the duties and the rights of the executive, or in this case, the prosecuting attorney, is. The executive, the elected prosecutor, is the sole authority in deciding what charges to pursue, including whether
centers now are Nick Richards, Mark Williams,
and what they do ask for, and what penalties to pursue, including the death penalty. This court cannot require the prosecutor to seek the death penalty, nor would it be appropriate for this court to attempt to do that. This court, in considering a plea agreement, if it were to reject this plea agreement, cannot force the state to seek the death penalty. To pursue, including the death penalty. This court cannot require the prosecutor to seek the death penalty, nor would it be appropriate for this court to attempt to do that. This court, in considering a plea agreement, if it were to reject this plea agreement, cannot force the state to seek the death penalty. My role and power in considering a plea agreement is extremely limited. My role is to ensure that the defendant's plea is given freely, voluntarily, and intelligently. If those things are met, I can only reject a plea, such as the one in this case, where I'm not being asked to agree to the sentence in advance. If I can only reject it, for example, if the defendant does not meet or admit to all of the elements of the crime. That is, I can ensure what is called a factual basis to the plea. Finally, I want to offer my apologies to all the families, including the victims' families, the families of the defendant, for the short notice for today's hearing, and I'm sure what must have been the hurried efforts to get here. I, like most everyone else, learned of this plea agreement Monday afternoon and had no inkling of it beforehand. Prior to that time, I was under the belief that this case was proceeding to trial, as had been indicated, and my staff and I were busy continuing to work on preparations to have potentially 10,000 citizens of Ada County come to jury duty starting in mid-July, with the questionnaire process in mid-July. It was, once I learned of the defendant's decision to change his plea in this case, it was important that I take the plea as soon as possible because of the extraordinary administrative efforts that were otherwise attendant to the process of this, getting this trial potentially underway on time, and including the significant process of bringing, again, potentially up to 10,000 jurors to come in and fill out juror questionnaires prior to the beginning of the voir dire process. And so it was important that we, if we're going to go down this road, do so expeditiously so that we can avoid those costs and expenses associated with that. Otherwise, if it was not going to result in a plea, or if for some reason the plea were to fall through today, that we could continue diligently towards trial at the time specified. And so that obviously required that we act quickly, and so some folks may have not had the amount of time that we would otherwise allow for them to travel here. And so, again, I apologize for that. I want to make people aware that during the hearing, if you are to leave the courtroom for any reason, you will not be readmitted during the hearing. Also, when we finish the hearing this morning, I ask that the public and media wait in their seats until the victims' families and the defendants' families and others are escorted out of the courtroom before you start to leave. Finally, I want to acknowledge the trial court administrator and her staff, the Ada County Sheriff, and the Ada County 4th District Marshal Service for the huge lift that they've accomplished in preparing for and orchestrating this hearing today, as well as to all the security attendant today that you see, and some of whom many of whom you don't see, with less than 48 hours notice. And so I appreciate the hard work that they've been doing. Frankly, some of them while they were on some vacation prior to the trial starting and had to call that short. And so I appreciate very much their professionalism and dedication. All right. That said, let's move to the business of today. I understand the state and the defense have reached a plea agreement in this case. For the record, I have a written plea agreement which indicates, in sum, the defendant will plead guilty to all 5 counts in the indictment: burglary, felony, and first-degree murder, 4 counts. The state and the defendant stipulate, that is, that the defense is not free to argue for a lesser sentence at sentencing, to the following. The defendant on the burglary charge will be sentenced to 10 years fixed, and that the defendant on counts 2 through 5, the 4 counts of first-degree homicide, on each count would receive a fixed life sentence, all 5 of those counts to run consecutive to one another. Defendant as part of the plea agreement, waives his right to appeal, as well as his right to appeal the sentence and his right to seek leniency or reconsideration of the sentence under Idaho Criminal Rule 35. This is not a Rule 11 agreement, meaning the court is not bound by the plea agreement and could impose a different lawful sentence at sentencing. The stipulated agreement between the parties is the maximum on each count, so theoretically, the only thing the court could do would be a lesser sentence at sentencing. Taylor, have you had sufficient time to discuss this case and all of its ramifications with your client?
I have, Your Honor.
Have you discussed fully with him his rights, defenses, and possible consequences to him of the guilty plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you been able to do all the discovery you feel necessary?
Yes, Your Honor.
And have you informed your client of the importance of providing the court truthful and accurate answers in taking this plea today?
I have.
Have you apprised your client of any and all offers and counter-offers and answered his questions about those?
Yes.
Do you consent to the entry of the plea today?
I do.
All right, Mr. Koberger, I need to ask you some questions this afternoon, or I guess it's this morning still. I do this to ensure that so that I am assured that you understand the nature of the charges to which I understand you're going to plead guilty, as well as the possible consequences to you of your guilty pleas. I want to make sure your plea is given voluntarily, and I want to make sure that you actually committed the crimes to which you're pleading guilty, because I don't want you to plead guilty to a crime you didn't commit. If you attempt to plead guilty today, but for some reason I don't accept your plea, then it is possible that your statements today could be used against you later at trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And now, while you're standing, actually, why don't you take the oath from the clerk?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in the matter not given before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, and Mr. Koberg, just to make it easier, you don't need to stand when you speak to me. I appreciate the sign of respect, but for convenience, you can remain seated, all right? Before I start asking you questions today, have you consumed, substantive questions, let me ask you, have you consumed any alcohol, drug, or other intoxicating substance that would impair your ability to understand or exercise reasonable judgment?
No.
You feel like you are thinking clearly today?
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the possible penalties are for each of the crimes to which I understand you're going to offer a guilty plea today. They include, on count one, the burglary, a fine of up to $50,000 and a period of incarceration of up to 10 years in the state penitentiary. You may be required to pay restitution to any victims of the crime. Count 2, 3, 4, and 5 for first-degree murder. The consequences include a fine of up to $50,000, a period of incarceration of life imprisonment, which is a requirement of a sentence, that it be a life sentence with a mandatory minimum sentence of at least 10 years on each of those counts. In addition, you would be potentially responsible for a fine of up to $5,000 to each of the victims of your crime, to be enforced in the form of a civil judgment, to operate as additional punishment. This is in excess of any restitution or fines that the court could order. And again, you may be required to pay restitution to the victims of the crime. You would be required to provide, as to counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a DNA sample and a right thumbprint impression, and potentially pay for analysis of those samples. You would lose any right to possess, purchase, or carry a firearm, the right to serve on jury duty, the right to hold public office, and the right to vote. Do you understand the charges and all those possible consequences?
Yes.
You've heard the plea agreement that I talked about today. Do you agree with that plea agreement?
Yes.
And do you understand the nature of the charges that you've been charged with that I understand you're going to plead guilty today to?
Yes.
As as I indicated, I'm not bound by the plea agreement, but the plea agreement is for the maximum on each count. Do you understand that I'm not bound by the plea agreement?
Yes.
Has anyone promised you that I would be lenient or easy on you if you pled guilty?
No.
Has anyone threatened you or anyone close to you to get you to plead guilty?
No.
Has anyone, other than the state's agreements with respect to the plea agreement, has anyone promised you anything in exchange for your plea agreement?
No.
Has anyone told you to be untruthful in answering my questions today?
No.
Has anyone offered you a reward of any kind other than the plea agreement in order to get you to plead guilty today?
No.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
And counsel, obviously there have been a number of motions filed to suppress evidence in this case. Other than those filed, are there any other motions that you felt were available with respect to Rule 12?
No, Your Honor.
And Mr. Koberg, you understand that by entering the guilty plea in this case, you would be giving up your right to appeal any decision this court made, as well as your sentence.
Yes.
Have you had enough time to decide whether or not to plead guilty?
Yes.
Are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Given your choices, do you believe it's in your best interest to plead guilty?
Yes.
Have you discussed fully the matter of pleading guilty with your attorney, and are you satisfied with the advice you've received?
Yes.
Has your attorney advised you to your satisfaction about what your rights are, what your defenses may be, and what the possible consequences to you of your guilty plea are?
Yes.
Has your attorney done everything you've asked them to do?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with their representation of you?
Yes.
I have received a written guilty plea advisory questionnaire that is purported to be filled out by you. Did you fill that document out?
Yes.
Did you understand the questions that you answered in this document?
Yes.
And are the answers that are outlined in this document your answers?
Yes.
Are those answers truthful?
Yes.
Did you sign the document?
Yes.
And this document outlines many of the rights that you have in this case should you not plead guilty. Did you understand those rights?
Yes.
They include a right to a jury trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to the presumption of innocence. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You have the right to require the state to prove your guilt as to each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to confront your accusers and cross-examine witnesses presented by the state, including by utilizing the subpoena power of the court to accomplish that. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You understand you would have a privilege against self-incrimination and a right to remain silent, meaning you would not be compelled to testify if you did not wish to, had you not pled guilty.
Yes.
You understand you're giving up that privilege and those rights that I've just outlined by pleading guilty.
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the state would have had to have proven at trial had you, as to the crimes that you're pleading guilty to, had you, if you didn't plead guilty. Let me find the document. Hang on a second here. All right. So as to count one burglary, the state would have to have proven that on or about November 13, 2022 in Latah County, Idaho, you unlawfully entered a residence located at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder. As to count 2, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogen, from which she died. As to count 3, the state would have had to have proven that on that same date in Latah County, at that same address, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. As to count 4, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. And then as to count 5, also murder in the first degree, that on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing him, from which he died. Do you understand those things the state would have had to have proven?
Yes.
And do you understand that by pleading guilty, the state no longer has to prove those things because you're admitting those things are true?
Yes.
I want to also make, for the record, the defendant has provided with the guilty plea advisory form a document entitled Written Factual Basis that purports to have the defendant's signature dated 1 July 2025. Did you sign that document?
Yes.
And did you agree with the written factual basis that is included there?
Yes.
And then let me ask you, did you, on November 13th, 2022, enter the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder?
Yes.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
Did you, on or about that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And did you, on that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And then on or about November 13th, 2022, again in Latah County, Idaho, did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
I would ask the state at this time to provide its recitation of its factual basis had this case gone to trial.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the organization of the recitation is different than what I think the court and the public may be familiar with from the probable cause affidavit and other documents. The state's evidence, as an overview, would show that back in March of 2022, when the defendant was residing at his parents' residence or was residing back in Pennsylvania, his home state, he purchased online a K-bar knife and sheath with an Amazon gift card that he had purchased shortly prior to the purchase of the knife, sheath, and sharpener. Jumping ahead, the end of June of that year, the defendant, Mr. Koberger, moved from Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington, which is right across the state line from Moscow, Idaho, for the purpose of pursuing a PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. The state's evidence would indicate that beginning July 9th of 2022, Mr. Koberger's phone began connecting to a cell tower that serves the area of the 1122 King Road residence in Moscow, Idaho. Now, I will acknowledge for the court and all present that there are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants. Between July 9th of 2022 and November 7th, the defendant's phone connected to that particular tower during late night, early morning hours, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., on approximately 23 times. Now, I will acknowledge also we do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can put his phone in that area on those times. In the interim, on August 22nd of 2022, Lake Tahoe County Sheriff's Deputy Darren Duke conducted a traffic stop in the early morning hour or late evening hours, about 11 p.m. On the west side of Moscow, on the Moscow-Pullman Road. This was a traffic stop of Mr. Koberger's car, which turned out to be a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plates. During the course of the traffic stop, Deputy Duke was able to obtain Mr. Koberger's name, Brian Koberger, his phone number, and his address, which at that point was an apartment address in Pullman. We then move to the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. The state's evidence would show that early morning hours on that day, Mr. Koberger's phone left his Pullman residence, which is an apartment in kind of the central northwest part of Pullman. That phone was then subsequently turned off at approximately 2:54 a.m. and remained off until approximately 4:48 a.m. on Sunday, the 13th of November. The state's evidence would include at trial video surveillance of a business on the Moscow-Pullman Highway just across the state line from Moscow that would show a vehicle matching the description of the defendant's Hyundai Elantra entering Moscow at approximately 3:02 a.m. Compiled surveillance that the investigators put together from businesses and residents then show the defendant's car, the white Elantra, as I've described, circling the 1122 King Road area, that neighborhood, starting around 3:30 or so in the morning. Comes into the immediate area of 1122 King Road, which is actually on a dead end, and then leaves several times. And approximately 4:05 that morning, the defense car had entered that area, was leaving, stopped at the intersection of King and Queen Road, did a U-turn, and the state's evidence would show that the defendant's car came back and parked behind and above the 1122 King Road residence. The state believes that its evidence would then show that the defendant entered the residence of 1122 through the kitchen sliding door on the back side of the residence, which is the side of the residence that would face the area above where the defendant's car was parked. Defendant entered the residence, went to the third floor, and with a knife, killed Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez. The defendant, as he left that room, for whatever reason, ended up leaving, or the sheath for a K-bar knife was left on the bed next to Madison Mogan's body. And I can jump ahead. That sheath was tested by the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab, and single source male DNA was found on the snap of that sheath, as well as blood from both Kaylee and Madison and other trace evidence. But it's important to note single source male DNA was on the snap of that sheath. The state's evidence would show that Xana Knodel was still awake at this time. In fact, had taken a DoorDash order not long before this started. Her room was not on the third floor, it was on the second floor on the west side. As the defendant was either coming down the stairs or leaving, he encountered Xana, and he ended up killing her, also with a large knife. Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was asleep in their bedroom, in her bedroom. and the defendant killed him as well with a large fixed blade knife. Each victim suffered multiple wounds. I will state for the record that there is no evidence there was any sexual component or sexual assault on any of the victims. I want to make that clear so there's no speculation. There were two other roommates in the house, and they were already asleep. During the course of this, one of those roommates awoke, looked out her door not knowing what was going on, and saw the defendant, who was dressed in black with a black balaclava on, holding some sort of container in his hand. And she saw him leave the house through the direction of the kitchen where that sliding door is that I mentioned before. At approximately 4:20 that morning, so this would have been 15 minutes or so later, the defendant's car is seen on a surveillance camera for 1112 King Road, which is immediately next door to the west of 1122, leaving the area at a high rate of speed. And if the court were to see that, or anybody in this courtroom were to see that, you can see the car almost loses control as it makes the corner, heads north, and then turns to go south on Walinta, which is one of the only ways to get out of that part of town. The evidence would show that following that, the defendant in his Elantra drove south of Moscow. We know that he drove on the back roads because there are surveillance cameras on the main highways, Highway 95, that would have picked up the defendant's car if he'd gone that route. And they did not show the defendant's car on that route during the time. So we know that he went through a variety of back roads in very rural, isolated part of Latah County. About 4:48 that morning, the defendant's phone comes back on. And the evidence will show that that phone was located south of Moscow, likely at a side road intersection with Highway 95. From there, the defendant's phone activity tracks it heading back north towards Pullman, Washington, where the defendant lived. About 5:26, starting approximately 5:26, various surveillance cameras in Pullman, Washington pick up the defendant's vehicle as he enters Pullman from the south and heads north and slightly west towards his apartment, where he arrived at approximately 5:30 in the morning. Later that morning, Sunday, the 13th of November of 2022, Mr. Koberger's phone returned to the area of King Road. We don't know exactly what he did, but it returned to that area. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. He was there for about 10 minutes and then returned to his Pullman residence. About 9:30, the state's evidence will show, evidence taken from the defendant's phone, that he took a selfie of himself on his phone in what appears to be the bathroom of his Pullman apartment with a thumbs up. The defendant's phone then went to the Lewiston-Clarkston Valley, approximately 30 miles south of Moscow and Pullman. And the defendant is actually seen with his car at various businesses down there. This area is the confluence of the Clearwater River and the Snake River. Lewiston is Idaho's seaport. Large bodies of moving water down there. In addition to tracing the defendant's activities, as I've just outlined, on the 13th and leading up to the 13th, the state's evidence will show that following Sunday, November 13th of 2022, business records show that the defendant began searching for a K-bar knife and a K-bar knife sheath, as the state believes, to replace the one that was left at the scene of the murders. The evidence also will suggest that there were at least attempts by the defendant to delete or alter his purchase history on Amazon, where all these transactions had occurred. Later that week, the state's evidence will show that Mr. Koberger went to what we would call DMV, motor vehicle licensing here in Idaho, in Pullman, to change his car registration from Pennsylvania to Washington. That's of note because Pennsylvania cars do not require a front license plate. The vehicles seen on the surveillance cameras of the defendant's car showed it didn't have a front license plate on it. At the time of the traffic stop by Deputy Duke in August, it was Pennsylvania plate, no front license plate. Mr. Koberger proceeded to finish his semester of studies at Washington State University and returned to Pennsylvania for the holidays. Law enforcement at this point were aware of Mr. Koberger, had been accessing information about him, were trying to find him. They located him in Pennsylvania, and they conducted what's called a trash pull. During the nighttime hours, agents of the FBI, who assisted immensely with this case, working with the sanitation department back in this neighborhood in Pennsylvania, took trash that had been set out on the street for collection, sent the contents of that from the Pennsylvania residence of the defendant's parents to the Idaho State Forensic Laboratory, where the lab experts there were able to identify DNA on a Q-tip as coming from the father of the person whose DNA was found on the knife sheath that was next to Madison Logan's body in the bed. Subsequently, an arrest warrant was issued here in Idaho, and a search warrant was issued in the state of Pennsylvania with the assistance not only of the FBI, but the Pennsylvania State Police.
And Patrol Services Southeast Bureau.
Can you start with what exactly happened out here?
Yeah, media partners, members of the public. Earlier today, just shortly after noon, officers from the Independence Division received an assault with a deadly weapon call for service here, the 7300 block of Pebblestone Drive. Upon arrival, we located 2 victims who had succumbed to gunshot wounds. At this time, we are not looking for anyone else. This is a very chaotic but active scene right now that our members of our homicide team and the Independence Division are working tirelessly to try to piece all the puzzle together, so to speak. So I want to thank them for being out here and responding so quickly. Members of the public, if you have any information about this case, if you please utilize our tip line at 704-334-1600. That'll be very beneficial. You know, we rely on our public in times like this, in times of crisis. You know, we're a day away or so from a major holiday, and in 26 years of working this job in this community, it never gets easy to stand before you and tell the public that we have 2 people that are deceased.
Major, can I ask, can you confirm anything about whether this is looking like a murder-suicide?
Well, I can't confirm anything. I can tell you that based on our initial investigation, we're not looking for anybody else. But again, we're trying to piece all these pieces of the puzzle together. So anything I would tell you at this point would be a little speculative on my part.
Now, we also know there were some young kids here. They were distraught. Do you know if there were any witnesses to what happened?
Yeah, we're working through that right now. Our homicide team has got out here very quickly. We're talking to people in the neighborhood, and we're trying to figure all those things out as we speak. So yeah, we're coming through that right now.
With this, some people who live in this area are concerned because they mentioned that they live here. Kind of what do you say to them, especially those who live here and not, community?
Yeah, so this is a busy apartment residential area, a lot of foot traffic, a lot of vehicular traffic. The thing I can tell the public right now is, if there's any information that you have, to please contact our CMPD tips line at 704-334-1600. But just to reiterate, we are not looking for any additional suspects at this time.
Remind people of if they're going through something. Obviously, it's hot outside. The summer, July 4th, a big holiday coming up. If you're going through a situation, there are resources. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, so, in coming up in this agency, in this community for so long, I can tell you that the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County has several resources if people are struggling for wellness. I would encourage you to reach out via our city website, via the county website to procure those resources. But summertime is a time where the temperature in the south is hotter. So I don't know if there's any correlation to anything I'm talking about today with that, but I'll just tell you, it's our resources are out there and our community supports us, both citizens and the police. So I would encourage anybody who's struggling to please reach out to those resources. Thank you. Thank you all.
first-degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being. How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first-degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being. How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Right. The court will find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges and each offense and the possible consequences to him of his guilty plea. The court finds that there is a factual basis for the plea and that finds the defendant believes the plea to be in his best interest. I find that the plea was given freely, voluntarily, and was intelligently made. I accept the plea. I direct that it be entered. I'll continue the matter for sentencing in this case. I think it was mentioned on the call Monday afternoon, the defense wishes to waive a pretrial investigation. Is that accurate?
Yes, Your Honor.
The state also?
Yes, Your Honor. The state does not believe pre-sentence investigation is needed given the evidence that is available. We want to, though, make sure that all of the victims have the opportunity to make statements to the court at sentencing.
Absolutely. And certainly both the state and the defense may present whatever sentencing memorandum and other documents you wish me to consider. The victims will be given an opportunity to provide the statements that they wish to at sentencing. Do we need more than one full day for sentencing?
I do not believe so, Your Honor. Obviously, we have numerous victims, and we have victims who share unique perspectives on this, and we want to make sure that they all have time to express their feelings to the court. But I believe that if we can start perhaps 8:30 or so in the morning, that we should be able to complete it all in one day.
Defense agree with that in terms of the time frame?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So as it happens, we have some time reserved in this case in July and August. The week of July 22nd is available. I don't know if that's too soon for the parties, or the next week, the week of August 4, is available. Any preference?
Your Honor, we're prepared as soon as the court wants to schedule it.
The state, I believe, would be prepared on the 22nd. Right. We've told the victims' families that we're looking at approximately those dates.
All right. So because of the plan to bring in so many jurors to fill out questionnaires, I had ordered that no other trials could take place in this courthouse the week of July 22nd. And so we will use that in terms of the sentencing date because of what I'm sure will be the significant interest of the media and the public and the logistics that will be required to make that happen. Without trials going, it'll be a lot easier to do that. So let's pick that week. Why don't we pick July 23rd with the idea that if for some reason we don't finish, we could continue into the 24th. We'll start at 9 in the morning. Does that give your team enough time, Sandra? 9 in the morning? All right. Any concerns with that date?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, sir.
All right. Any reason why I should not rescind the non-dissemination order at this time?
You're right. I think that given the history of this case, it would be best if that remained in place through sentencing, so we have time to make sure there's the ability to completely answer questions. That would be the state's preference and recommendation.
We'd have no objection for the order to remain in place through sentencing.
All right, I will, at this point, the idea to keep it until sentencing, which time it would be withdrawn in order to give the parties the space and time to prepare to meet what I'm sure will be the deluge of media requests. That's at least my preliminary decision at this point. We can always revisit if it seems to be, for some reason, I should. That said. Obviously, I don't think the defendant, a bond was ever set for the defendant. Were it would be revoked. The prior order allowing him to come in civilian clothes is revoked given his plea and no longer the presumption of innocence, and in fact now the actual conviction for the crimes. He will continue to be held at the jail pending sentencing. Is there anything else today?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
I assume that the trial date will be vacated and those 4 jurors will be released.
The trial will be vacated, and I'm sure that the jury commissioner will get word to those that receive their summons that they won't be required to attend. So that said, again, if you would all please wait for the parties and the victims' families and others to leave the courtroom before you do, I would appreciate it. And with that, we're adjourned.
All right, please.
Have it, Brian Kohberger pleading guilty, and that plea deal accepted by Judge Hippler. They're guilty on all 5 counts, 10 years fixed for burglary, and then, of course, life fixed, consecutive sentences, life in prison on 4 first-degree murder charges.
And the judge asked Kohberger each count, talked about each victim, named them, asked him if he was guilty of killing them. Take a listen.
So as to count 1 burglary, the state would have to have proven that on or about November 13, 2022 in Latah County, Idaho, you unlawfully entered a residence located at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder. As to count 2, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogen, from which she died. As to count 3, the state would have had to have proven that on that same date in Latah County, at that same address, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. As to count 4, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. And then as to count 5, also murder in the first degree, that on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing him, from which he died. Do you understand those things the state would have had to have proven?
Yes.
And do you understand that by pleading guilty, the state no longer has to prove those things because you're admitting those things are true?
Yes.
There you have it. Brian Kohberger again admitting verbally in court that he killed Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle.
And our Andrea Dearden is live at the Ada County Courthouse. They are filing out of the courtroom right now. Family first, then of course the media and any witnesses. And Andrea, we may just hear from some of those family members, or can we? Because the judge is keeping the gag order in place through sentencing, which we know is now scheduled for July 23rd.
He is, but we did just see Kayla Gonzalez's father come in just now. We've talked about how he did not choose to be inside the courtroom. In fact, he walked out of the courtroom earlier today, as we talked about before the hearing. Here he's meeting other family members as they come out following the hearing. So we will see if anyone is willing to give a statement. Of course, obviously they have issued statements on social media and offered their family's thoughts. Of course, you heard the Gonzalez family say they are outraged. They do not believe justice was served in this case. It does not appear that they are going to come and address media directly here. So we do have an area set up here for families to speak if they would like to. We will wait for the other folks to come out of the courtroom. This was their opportunity. You heard the hearing there, the Brian Kohberger pleading guilty to all counts, going through each one of those. And at the very end, the prosecutor getting a little emotional as he read the names of those victims. Certainly a testament to just how heavy this is weighing on everyone involved.
And Andrea, as we wait for family members to come out and possibly comment, let's go right to the beginning of this hearing where the judge started out asking for no outbursts in the courtroom. And I think the courtroom was very well behaved. There were no outbursts in the courtroom. And then he talked about something interesting that I wanted to talk to you about. He said there were calls to contact him and try and sway his decision about this plea. He says he has been dealing with that. It's been very disruptive to the court and to what's going on there. Tell us what you know about that.
I know he did talk about that in the court, to talk about, you know, the calls and essentially the pleas to him in order to change his opinion, or to sway his opinion, is how he put it. And he said that, you know, he wanted people to understand that he has very limited discretion here. So it is his job, just as we talked about prior to the hearing, it's his job to make sure that the defendant is entering this plea agreement willingly, that he understands the terms, and that he is saying and he is admitting that he committed these crimes, and that he is not pleading guilty because of any coercion or because of any threats that he might have gotten. And also to recognize that while this is, we talked about a binding agreement or a non-binding agreement, he is not bound by this sentence. So that means that the judge will go into the sentencing, he will take in all of the information into account, and then he will determine that sentence. We expect him to follow the plea agreement, those life sentences, consecutive life sentences. Also, he will issue restitution, fees, things like that. But what this means, though, is that that's the only discretion he has. So he wanted to make it clear. He wanted to put it on the record that no matter what anyone says when they call, in fact, he said he didn't listen to the messages. He passed on any type of threat or any kind of, you know, problematic message. He said he passed those on to law enforcement. But otherwise, he did not take into consideration any of those comments that were sent here either by phone or by email, because he said that's not his job. His job, his duty, his responsibility is to the court and to make sure that the legal process is followed as is required. But his own opinion, or the opinions of those who have tried to sway that opinion, he said simply don't play a role here. They don't have a place in this process.
Andrea, can I ask you about the demeanor of Bryan Kohberger? This is a man who is admitting to 4 grisly murders. You said everyone was really affected by this. He didn't seem to be affected at all, though, by it.
I can only see what I saw, what you're seeing. I'm paying attention to his body language, paying attention to his voice. I would agree that he seemed calm. He spoke clearly. He spoke loudly enough. It wasn't a meek or mild response to the judge when asked. In the very beginning, he stood to address the court, as you do, out of respect for the judge. Judge Hippler saying you don't have to stand. You can sit while we have this conversation. But yes, I agree that I thought that he seemed calm. I thought that he seemed composed, and essentially pretty comfortable in that space, answering those questions as they were asked by the judge. And of course, we all know that those are significant. And of course, also in there, laying out some of the evidence. Most of the evidence that they talked about in the court today was those were pieces of information that we have known as we followed this story. So I don't think there was anything that was super surprising or super that caught us off guard. But it's still difficult to sit there and listen to it. Surely the family, the victims' families can't be easy to hear that. And I wonder if that gives them any solace in having that laid out in the courtroom of exactly what he did. Of course, that not coming from Kohberger himself, but from the prosecutor in this case, detailing the pieces of evidence and the pieces of information that they planned, at least some of those that they planned to present at trial. And we've heard, especially from the Gonsalves family, saying they want there to be full accountability and they want to know exactly what happened, and they want that absolutely shared in court. And I believe they want to hear that from Kohberger himself. That didn't happen. Now, we do know that sentencing will come up on July 23rd, and the defense team and the defendant himself will have the opportunity. He has a right to address the court, but to be clear, he is not obligated to say anything at all. And so whether or not he will have a statement prepared, that will remain to be seen, and we'll have to wait to see what happens during the sentencing hearing, July 23rd.
What's going to be especially emotional and impactful on that day, as the judge mentioned, is that every family member that wants to, who has been impacted by this case, will have a chance to speak. Now, it looks like
there aren't a lot of family members coming out right now that want to share at this time. That could be because the gag order is still in place until the sentencing, which is July 23rd, as Andrea mentioned. It doesn't look like anyone's coming up to the microphones to speak, but it's going to be very powerful, very emotional. We're going to hear from probably just about everyone involved in this case. Coming up on July 23rd, they'll have time to get those victim impact statements put together. And as Andrea mentioned, Brian Kohberger has a chance to speak as well. We'll see if he takes that opportunity or not.
Again, that will be July 23rd, really the next step in all this. And the point of this hearing, as we talked about, as Andrea certainly talked about, was for the judge to make sure that Brian Kohberger understood that this plea deal, that he was pleading guilty to these grisly murders, that this plea was being given freely, voluntarily, and without coercion. And again, he confirmed all that. The only words that he said in court today were yes, no, and guilty a number of times as he was answering the judge's questions. And Judge Hippler there decided that, yes, Kohberger understood the charges against him, what he was agreeing to, and so now he is guilty and facing those consecutive life sentences.
Yes. All right, Andrea, thank you so much for your input, for your coverage today. We have a lot more coming up throughout the day here on Channel 7, but once again, this is over. Brian Kohberger has pleaded guilty to killing those 4 University of Idaho college students. He says he, yes, is the one who did it. We have more on our website right now, ktvb.com. You can watch what you missed on KTVB Plus. You can also, it looks like we might have some people coming out that might want to speak. So I think we're going to continue our coverage. Maybe it just took them a while to come on out and make that decision.
There are some people congregating there. We'll wait to see if we can hear from them. As you said, as the judge said, the gag order is in place until sentencing on July 23rd. Looks like we have not seen all of the family members yet. We saw Steve Gonzalez at the front of the courtroom and then walking away from the courtroom. He was not inside at the time, had done sort of a protest by not going inside. He was not happy with this plea deal, though according to the judge and the prosecutor will be given an opportunity to give a statement during sentencing.
The family obviously very furious, the Gonzalez family. We did hear from Steve Gonzalez, Kaylee Gonzalez's dad, before the hearing. Let's go ahead and let you listen in on what he had to say.
Surviving victims and make this person say that they had nothing to do with it. He did it solely, he did it all on his own, and nobody else was responsible. And then we won't keep having these supporters always saying that he got set up. We know what he's planning on doing. Somebody died, a vet died, and he's going to try to say that and put the blame on that person. So he's not going to take accountability.
All right, so there's that soundbite there. He was not in the courtroom for the plea agreement. He did join his wife, Christy Gonzalez, afterward there on the steps of the courthouse, and then they left, and with no comment, as far as we know. He could have spoken to some photographers on the way out. We're not quite sure yet, but we are waiting. There's a little stand there with a bunch of microphones from different networks and organizations here of the media who would like to hear from some people involved in the case. If they so choose, we'll see if they do come out.
Now, again, let's go back to this plea deal and what was agreed to, what Brian Kohberger pled guilty to today. Again, 5 counts, 10 years fixed for burglary, but also consecutive, not concurrent, those would be served at the same time, consecutive life sentences, 4 life sentences each for first-degree murder. He cannot appeal, cannot ask for a different sentence as well. And lawyers said that they gave Kohberger all the information he needed to agree to this plea deal. Again, we heard from him numerous times during that hearing that he understood it, that he agreed to it. While he did not show emotion, Judge Hippler believed that he absolutely understands what he is agreeing to and the seriousness of this sentence and these crimes.
The judge asked him over and over again.
Yeah.
Over and over again, gave him the opportunity to say he did not commit these crimes, that he does not want to take this plea deal. He did not do that. I do want to mention as well, there was a lot of talk about why this hearing happened so quickly. Many family members were concerned. They didn't have enough time to get to Boise to be here for this hearing if they were living out of state or if they were further away. Well, the judge kind kind of explained that, and I thought that was necessary. He apologized to the family, said, you know, I just found out about this on Monday. So the judge just found out about the plea agreement on Monday of this week, the same day we all did. That's when the judge found out about it. He said then they met, they talked about it, and he realized they had to get moving on this hearing right away because I guess they're going to call, or they were going to call, 10,000 prospective jurors for this trial. And that process was already in motion. So they had to fix that and put a hold on that as soon as possible if this trial was not going to happen. And as you just saw, the trial has been canceled. There will be no trial, no death penalty. Bryan Kohberger will spend the rest of his life in prison.
Judge Hippler talked about the fact.
Individual eye. All right, everyone. Yes, sir, go ahead. I know, just to slip through there. Go ahead. Yes,
sorry, just a quick question on Iran. Iran announced today that it's suspending its cooperation with the IAEA. I would
surprise.
I would like to have your thoughts.
I have
comment
a few
on that.
Yes, we of course do have a little bit to say in that regard. First of all, and I want to get this correct here. It is, we'll use the word unacceptable, that Iran chose to suspend cooperation with the IAEA at a time when it has a window of opportunity to reverse course and choose a path of peace and prosperity. Iran must cooperate fully without further delay. Prior to the, as will the shutting down of your phone, that has to proceed without delay. Prior to the United States' successful military operation, Iran was amassing a growing stockpile of highly enriched uranium for which there was no credible peaceful purpose, and it was the only state producing highly enriched uranium up to 60% that does not have nuclear weapons. Iran must fully comply with its safeguards agreement required under the NPT, including by providing the IAEA with information required to clarify and resolve long-standing questions regarding undeclared nuclear material in Iran, as well as provide unrestricted access to its newly announced enrichment facility. We look forward to further detailed reporting from the IAEA about this. It is worth repeating, as we've made tremendous strides to this through Donald Trump's leadership, Iran cannot and will not have a nuclear weapon. The president has said this repeatedly. The Secretary of State has said this repeatedly. We have repeated it from this podium. And at this juncture here, it is, of course, again, unacceptable that Iran is choosing to suspend cooperation with the IAEA. And answering your question, Daphne, yes.
Thank you. On this final ceasefire proposal for Gaza that Trump has said Israel has agreed to, does it include provisions for Israel pulling out of Gaza?
What I am going to, the president had a message about that from last night, and I'll read that for you. So we just get this on the record here. From the President, Donald Trump. My representatives had a long and productive meeting with the Israelis today on Gaza. Israel has agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize the 60-day ceasefire, during which time we will work with all the parties to end the war. The Qataris and the Egyptians, who have worked very hard to help bring peace, will deliver this final proposal. I hope for the good of the Middle East that Hamas takes this deal, because it will not get better. It will only get worse. Thank you for your attention to this matter. As far as your question about the details, I won't go into the details of what's in the proposal.
Hamas has said that Israel must pull out of the enclave. How does the administration plan to reconcile this? Is that addressed in the proposal?
I will not give you the details of the proposal, and we'll find out, but I think the president's message is clear. This is one that has to be accepted because it will only get worse if they don't. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Tammy. A White House official told our colleagues that the Trump administration has paused certain weapons shipments to Ukraine. What was the State Department's role in making this decision to pause these weapons shipments? And are you concerned about the advantage it gives to the Russians?
Well, traditionally, of course, I mean, our wheelhouse here is diplomacy. We don't make decisions about the shipping of weapons or the managing of weaponry during war. We have the Department of Defense. I would refer you to them when it comes to this kind of a decision. At the same time, we've got a few things I can say to you regarding this. It remains, as you might imagine, worth repeating, a priority of President Trump to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to an end through a durable negotiated settlement, starting with an immediate ceasefire. And of course, just referring you to the Department of Defense for more information regarding that situation regarding weapons. Anna Kelly, a White House spokesperson, also has noted, this decision was made to put America's interests first following a DoD review of our nation's military support and assistance to other countries around the globe. The strength of the United States Armed Forces remains unquestioned. Just ask Iran. Also, from a statement by Elbridge Colby from the 2nd, which was yesterday, at the DoD, that the Department of Defense, quote, continues to provide the president with robust options to continue military aid to Ukraine. At the same time, the department is rigorously examining and adapting its approach to achieving this objective, while also preserving U.S. forces' readiness for administration's defense priorities.
Can I quickly ask on GHF, the State Department announced last week that you had approved $30 million. Has any of that money been dispersed yet? And if so, how much?
It has been fully approved. It has not been dispersed. There is process, as you all might imagine, in the building regarding the dispersal of any funds. And when that happens, I will let you guys will be the first ones to know. Andrea Mitchell, yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to note, before I ask my question, the passing of one of your predecessors, Richard Boucher, who served 6 secretaries of state, was an esteemed diplomat and very highly respected spokesperson for this department.
Yeah. Yes. 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 All right. Thank you, Andrea.
I want to ask you about the passing of USAID, the demise of USAID being absorbed into the State Department in a very different fashion.
All right, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us here on this Wednesday on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. It's 2:22. I don't know the significance of that number. I thought that was pretty cool. This time, I just wanted to point that out.
You just wanted to point it out.
You get like this when you get close to your Friday. But anyway, thank you guys for joining us. It's been a busy day. All right, so happening live right now, we want to get you out to D.C. because the State Department briefing is happening right now. That is spokesperson Tammy Bruce with the State Department. It looks like she's answering questions from reporters. Let's take a listen in.
That the saving of 25 million lives from antiretroviral drugs is on HIV/AIDS as well as tuberculosis is something that the USAID staff, because he sent this to the USAID staff in a video, and he said that you should be proud of it and God bless you all for what you did. So I just want to ask you about how it is going to be reconstituted, because the secretary's writing on Substack describes it as wasteful and not fulfilling U.S. goals in broad categories, and it's contrary to what Republicans and Democrats have said in Congress for years.
Yes, it is inevitably it grew into something that was beyond what it was meant to do. There's clearly some very good options and aid that was delivered. And that aid was maintained, but what we found was something that was unacceptable. We've been discussing this transparently from the beginning of the Trump administration and Secretary Rubio's State Department, that this, and I guess I'll have to repeat, that there is the past, things that happened in the past, certainly aid that went out that was beneficial, that has been maintained, and other aid that was not in line with America's priorities or what certainly the Trump administration and the Rubio State Department felt was appropriate.
All right, so it looks like we lost the feed there. As soon as we get it, we will try to get you back to it. But again, a lot is happening today. Just to kind of recap, one, the Diddy verdict, it came in. Let me refresh. I've gotten a ton of updates since we last talked about this. But, and I want to check to see if we have a decision on if he will be able to come back home or if he will be staying in custody. So again, you see the charges there. Not guilty on the racketeering charge, not guilty on sex trafficking, guilty on transportation to engage in prostitution, guilty when it comes to, again, another guilty count on that transportation to engage in prostitution. But again, he's not guilty on the major charges that would have put him in prison for life. Now, the latest update that we got from NBC News, I want to read this from the blog. So Cassie's attorneys asked judge to reject Combs' release. Attorney Doug Windor, who we heard from earlier and this morning, he represents Cassie Ventura, submitted a letter asking the court to deny Combs' release. In the letter, Cassie's attorney referenced part of the Bail Reform Act to say that detention is, quote, mandatory after convictions on the Mann Act charges. He added that Ventura believes that Mr. Combs is likely to pose a danger to the victims who testified in this case, including herself, as well as to the community. So there have been other people who have come out and said that Diddy could pose a threat if he's out. Former stylist of Sean Diddy Combs also saying, quote, immediate threat to victims. So that is the immediate reaction. Just want to catch you up again. Big story of the day. That is a live look outside the courthouse. We should be hearing, okay, so, and I'm kind of scrolling now. So we should get an update on if he's staying in custody or if he's allowed to go home.
It's 5 p.m. is what I just saw.
Bail hearing. Okay, 5 p.m. is the bail hearing. That's why I paused for a second. But yeah, 5 p.m. today, we should have a decision on the status of his bail.
Right.
That's according to NBC News.
His team's asking for him to go back to Miami and $1 million bail.
Yes, basically.
Yep.
So we actually, look, this is a big case. We extended our morning coverage. We've been bringing updates bit by bit throughout the afternoon. So we'll keep an eye on this. For now, it looks like we got the State Department briefing back.
Correct.
Let's get you back out there to State Department briefing. This is spokesperson Tammy Bruce speaking right there on your screen.
Principle. We live on that principle, and we are giving foreign aid on that principle, but it will be functional, it will be auditable, we will know where it's going, and we will see results. All right. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tommy. I have 2 questions on Ukraine. I want to press you a little bit more. I know you referred to the Defense Department.
Yes.
But the Ukrainians, appear to have, learned about it from the media this morning. Is there any reason behind the failure when it comes to communicating this to the Ukrainian allies?
I would argue that that is not correct. Obviously, perhaps some Ukrainians heard about it in the news. Our communication lines with Ukraine have always been robust. While it was not, well, I will not discuss who delivered the news, but that is a conversation clearly that is something that occurred because of the importance of this project to the United States. We have been Ukraine's biggest supporter emotionally, militarily, financially, and there's a reason for that. At the same time, as we've also said and the President has said, and the Secretary, that we in fact have got to make sure, because we have a global front of what it matters to America, and that's why we've been asking our European partners and allies and friends to also chime in because of the nature of the fronts that we are always dealing with around the world. And that is sometimes a decision. At the same time, the DoD statement made clear that they have robust options as we continue to work to assist Ukraine when it comes to the options that they might have. That's from the DoD, and I don't doubt that. So we should, I think, be cautious about judging the nature of what has just occurred, considering our commitment that remains for the country of Ukraine.
Point taken, Tammy. But the president from the get-go made it clear that he's an American first, foreign policy objective when it comes to Russia-Ukraine war is to end the killing. And these are defensive weapons, and Ukraine needs that for that very reason, to end the killing of Ukrainians by the Russians. How do you square that circle?
Well, it's not, one doesn't need to complete the circle or square it. Our commitment hasn't changed. The nature of how we're able to make that commitment is going to be based on what is best for America first. It is the president's point of view, his guiding hand about the nature of what needs to occur. And it is certainly two nations at war. And America has made a huge difference in that regard. And the president still has worked to have people at the table, that this can only be solved diplomatically. That, of course, is the State Department's wheelhouse. And that's what he wants. He has made several remarks returning to this now with the Israel-Iran situation at least managed. And this is not something that the president is not addressing. It is clearly on our plate all the time. Certainly, he has specifically referred to the nature of the continued slaughter. It is unacceptable. It is a horrible dynamic, the targeting of civilian areas. The world knows this. This has been something that's been discussed. The president has expressed his fury over this issue, and that has not changed. So again, be cautious as things move along from day to day. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tammy. Just going back to Gaza, I know you said you didn't want to go into details, but can you perhaps...
You can ask. I might not answer, but
Well, I'm going to ask if you can perhaps speak more broadly then about what gives President Trump so much optimism that he can get the deal through within the next few days, especially given that the parties are still so far apart, with Hamas saying it wants Israeli forces out while Israel say it wants an end to Hamas. So there's a lot of daylight still between those two parties.
Is there?
Well, can you speak more
but you see,
broadly
we
about
should
that?
not. You're presuming a great deal, which people do have to presume, because the details of something like this, of course, do remain with the negotiating partners, the leaders of nations. What you can tend to see in the media often is just simply not true, or wishful thinking. But whatever it is, what I think we all have noticed, and this is not giving away anything, is that the Middle East changed a couple weeks ago, very dramatically. It changed forever. And the work of the President of the United States, thank God for him, is going to make sure that this is not a lost opportunity. We can say this simply by having watched him most of his adult life in some capacity, but certainly with what he's given up and sacrificed to be the leader of this country. So, the Middle East changed dramatically. This is an opportunity in the midst of this new world to make a different kind of decision. He is optimistic. The president is very honest. Sometimes he's pessimistic, and he'll let people know. Again, he's a transparent man, which sometimes can be unusual. We're not used to always hearing it, but it's extremely helpful. So while I don't know the detail of what makes him optimistic, I know to trust him. I know to not second guess him. I know that we understand that he's in the midst of something that can change every day. That's also not lost on him. But the changes that he's been able to bring about has been brought about by the power of his personality and leadership, along with the support of an American government that is in line and embraces what he wants to accomplish. I think that is why he's optimistic. It seems to be a different tone. I hope it works. Of course, again, these are all fluid situations, but he knows things that we don't, and I look forward to finding out if it's this week, if it's next week, but I'm grateful that he's the one making the decisions. Nadia.
Thank you, Tammy. Just to go back to the Middle East, is the 60-day ceasefire proposal, was it the same one that Mr. Witkoff proposed to both parties, which includes releasing 10
I can't speak to that,
15?
one way or the other. I won't give you details regarding that.
No details at all?
No, I'm sorry, I can't.
Okay. Just now you just condemned the attacks on civilians in Ukraine.
Of course.
Yesterday there was an attack on a beach cafe in Gaza where 24 civilians were killed, including our colleagues, a female journalist was killed as well. Does the United States condemn the killing of civilians and targets?
Well, we have always, one of the reasons why we do what we do is because no one wants to have civilians killed either in a terrorist act, in war. One of the things that the President has repeated, as has Secretary Rubio, is that the carnage has to stop. We have decried the killing of civilians throughout every conflict that exists. At the same time, it's why war is hell. It's why we want something more than a ceasefire is important, but it can't be back and forth. There has to be a durable end to all of these conflicts. So we mourn like everyone. Of course, the killing of civilians, with whomever it is that's engaging in these conflicts. But that is why we're so committed to Gaza, to Israel's right to defend itself. We were as horrified by October 7th and the slaughter of those civilians. This is why it has to end. There is aggressive actions where if you're in war or if you're defending yourself and these are civilian areas, it's horrible enough. And it's another to deliberately target civilians for the sake of it. And those are the monsters that we are trying to stop and that the world has tried to stop for generations now. So this is why our work continues in Gaza, why the ceasefire is important, and why the end of war and the status quo that so many people have grown rich from has got to end. Saeed.
Thank you,
Yes,
Tammy. WHO, the World Health Organization, said that 112 Palestinian children, many of them are newborn and so on, are sent to whatever remains of the hospital because of malnutrition. It's because the aid is just not getting through. And my question to you is that basically a statement or evidence that the aid that has been going in is not enough and is not sufficient, that maybe it ought, the aid ought to be the responsibility of those who have had a great deal of experience in doing this, consistent with all the international organizations that have stated to that effect.
Well, two parts I'll answer that. First of all, there's one entity that has gotten food and aid into the Gaza Strip, and that's the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. We know this. This has been a fact of the matter. And that's, I think we're now up to 56 million meals distributed. So it's still within a war zone. We had a ceasefire that Hamas broke. I would say on the other issue, when it comes to the horribleness of what happens in a war zone, in this case in Gaza, it is occurring because Hamas refuses. It broke a ceasefire on October 7th. It broke another ceasefire that was attained for the Gaza Strip. It is now refusing, at least up to this point, prior to the change in the Middle East, to continue to agree to another ceasefire. They maintain their firearms. They are maintaining hostages, people they've kidnapped. And so, yes, it is horrible. And it's something that we are working to stop. But I would say regarding aid, we'll just make an admission here. It will never be enough. There will never be enough aid going into a war zone. No matter how many depots the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, sets up, it will not be enough, because the only way you have a normal life with enough aid and enough food and being able to live your normal life is in an area that is not at war or being held hostage by a terrorist group. So to attempt to normalize the environment that is under this horrible cloud of terroristic monsterism, of the slaughter of innocent people, the using of people as human shields, the using of hospitals as a cover for your operations, the using of schools as a cover for your operations. It is obscene. It is inhuman. So what we do in the midst of that environment will never be enough. And it is a key, though, to unlocking a door, to get to a point where you can have a ceasefire, assisting those who are held hostage by the terrorists, and being able to get to a point where you actually have a ceasefire, removing those who do not abide by the ceasefire, and then begin to build a genuinely different future for the people in that area. What a concept. So we do our best. We know it will never be enough, because the situation is obscene and unusual and unnatural. But we will do it until we also then move to change that situation for the better. Back to you and then to you, sir.
Two topics, Tammy, thanks so much. Number one, with all the developments with Iran and Syria and Gaza, it's been all quiet, thank goodness, on the Israel-Lebanon front, but still some work to do there. What are the challenges that remain at this point in disarming Hezbollah and enforcing Resolution 1701?
Well, I would direct you to the Israeli government in that regard. I think the thing that has changed the Middle East beyond, of course, the damage to the destruction, the obliteration of Iran's nuclear facilities, is the personality and power that is exhibited by Donald Trump and what he is willing to do, what the American government and military is capable of, and as a reflection of our genuine commitment for change, after exhausting all diplomatic options, is that he will do what else is necessary to achieve peace. That is something as a message to the entire Middle East, including to our allies, and to those who have stepped up as an example regarding the Gaza Strip, the regional partners there willing to step in and help make a difference for the future there. So the biggest issue, and again, for specifics, you'd have to speak to the Israeli government, but for us, we made that decision last year in November without knowing how it would need to be applied, but it's also because of the American people that we're able to send this message to the world that we are still here, we are still the team you can count on. America matters, we know it, and we're going to defend our country, which is what it needs to exist in order to have this hope for the future. Yes, Eric.
Yes, thank you, Tammy. Wanted to ask about stands the decision on which weapons to provide to Ukraine, being one taken at the Pentagon. But from a diplomacy standpoint, does pausing the weapon deliveries for Ukraine make it more difficult to get Russia to come to the table in terms of a peace agreement or a ceasefire, because it somehow relieves potential pressure on them?
It's a very good question, but it's good that it's not going to be a factor because we haven't paused sending weapons to Ukraine. This is one aspect, one situation, one event that has been changed. As you heard from the DoD, there are multiple robust other options and efforts regarding the Ukrainian situation with weapons. Again, I don't speak for the DoD. I can only refer to their statement and to what they've stated very bluntly. The president has also indicated his remaining commitment regarding Patriot missiles. This is not, I will reinforce this is not a cessation of us assisting Ukraine or of providing weapons. This is one event in one situation, and we'll discuss what else comes up in the future, but be wary of painting too broad a brush there. All right.
And another,
one more.
You just a few minutes ago put out a statement about about Secretary Rubio's phone call with the Foreign Minister of Mexico, Juan Ramón de la Fuente, in which they spoke about issues relating to transnational crime, terrorist organizations, of which the Mexican cartels were declared in the first days of this administration.
We were busy. We are busy. Yes.
I was wondering if you could talk about the importance of the relationship with Mexico, but in particular the designation by the Treasury Department of Mexican banks that were involved in money laundering, and whether that was part of the discussion between the Secretary and his counterpart.
Well, other than what was on the readout, and for the Americans watching this, you too can see the reports of phone calls and meetings that we have. We put out things called readouts, which give some detail of a phone call, not everything, it's not a transcript, but you can go to state.gov, here I go, and you can subscribe, and you have a lot of different options. You can get statements by the Secretary, you can get schedules, you can get just all kinds of things, and I encourage everyone to do that. But I would say that it's clear that we have an excellent relationship with Mexico. We have, and they've been very helpful regarding the border. The conversations are good. Of course, we've made some designations which help this country, but also the world, in recognizing certain foreign terrorist organizations for being such, and certainly criminal cartels. So I won't give you any more details about the call than what was publicly distributed for the most part, but I can tell everyone that our relationship is excellent. And this, of course, is part and parcel of the Secretary's theory regarding diplomacy, is that it's about people and it's about relationships, and we reinforce that all the time. I have a feeling I will never again hear from Matt Lee if I don't call on him because you seem to, maybe it's you have a shoulder issue, that you can't raise your hand. Did you have, like, I had torn rotator cuff surgery once, and it was very difficult to raise my hand.
Oh, actually, I do have a bruise on my elbow.
Well, that's because you're sitting with your elbows on the table, not raising your hand. What can I do for you, sir?
Well, actually, I have a very easy question. Do you know, is Secretary going to be joining the President and Prime Minister Netanyahu at the White House on Monday, or does he have other plans?
The Secretary's schedule I can't discuss at this point. Sorry, it was an easy question and an easy answer.
Okay.
Is that the depth of it?
Yeah.
All right, sure. All right. Now, wait, hold on one second. You, sir, and then you'll go. Go ahead.
Question on Iran. As you mentioned, Iran's nuclear program has been shattered by the U.S. and Israeli
Has
attacks.
been past tense, but yes, but go ahead.
The Iranian foreign minister has asked for assurances from the U.S. that there will be no attack on Iranian soil if the talks are going to be resumed, if there's going to be a resumption of talks between Iran and the U.S. What's the U.S. stance on this?
Well, again, I'm not going to get ahead of my skis here and preview for you what the Secretary or the President might decide, because it certainly is in the President's hands. You heard my remarks regarding their rejection of the IAEA and those that situation, of course, that is unfortunate, and again, it's a very bad decision. So they seem to be, not surprisingly, making bad decisions, but it's going to, the President, as we've seen, is also a very generous man, and he cares about all the people, and he knows Iran can be great again, and yet that's going to be up to the Iranian people, but so far, I can't discuss what they may or may not do in that regard. But well, I'm sure we'll hear from the President as well. All right, yes, ma'am, in the back.
Thank you very much. I have a question on the West Bank. Israeli Justice Minister Yair Lapid today said that the time has come to annex the occupied West Bank. Do you have any reaction to this, and what is this administration position on a potential Israeli annexation of the West Bank?
Well, I think that is specifically something that the White House would be able to answer for you, but I also know that our position regarding Israel, the choices it's make, is that we stand with Israel and its decisions and how it views its own internal security.
And is the two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict still an official policy of the U.S. government?
What I can say there is that President Trump is realistic about the current state of affairs. Clearly, Gaza is an uninhabitable place. It needs to be rebuilt with the help of Arab partners. I think he has said previously that the nature of what has happened and what we have to get to, we don't have a ceasefire yet. Hopefully that will change. But that is getting quite ahead of the dynamic in general. So that is what the President's focused on. All right, yeah, sir, there, and then we'll go to you, sir, but go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Tammy. Two questions. The first one on Israel. Is this department or the U.S. government trying to have any direct talks to Hamas, or just going through the Qatari and the Egyptians?
I won't discuss the nature of the choices in a diplomatic effort like this.
Okay. And the second one, if this department believes that there's not going to be any potential ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, maybe until after the summer, looking at positioning 50,000 troops.
Well, again, I'm not going to speculate, but the commitment I know by President Trump and the Secretary is that things have to happen quickly. We've seen deadlines set. We've seen statements regarding waiting weeks versus days for the parties to do something, certainly for Russia to give an indication whether it was serious or not. So we are not an administration.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Serderman. Right there, you're watching, to your right, you're watching live. That's in Washington, D.C. Well, both shots actually in Washington, D.C. But to your right, that's Tammy Bruce, spokesperson for the State Department. To your left, that's the House floor. They're talking about the one big, beautiful bill that's up for debate in the U.S. House. All right, we'll shift away from that. Let's talk about travel. Let's talk about the roads. This is a live look at a variety of travel situations.
I think we have Rock Hill in the top left, Charlotte in the top right. That's our Dallas Skycam in the bottom left, and Carowinds in the bottom right.
So far, it looks good outside, James.
It looks gorgeous.
It was raining earlier. That's why I'd say that. Look, it's 4th of July weekend. A lot of folks like James are going to hit the road. I know I'm putting you on the spot again, James. But get this. Did you know, James, according to AAA, a record 2.3 million North Carolinians expected to travel for 4th of July weekend.
A little birdie
Or
told
for the
me.
week, I should say, 4th of July week. I told you that, little birdie. Am I the little birdie?
I mean, definitely.
All right. Okay. Well, there are a lot of folks hitting the roads. Look, we try to give you news you can use, information that you can take with you, and hopefully that you can use it for good purposes and all that. So we want to bring in Tiffany Wright, Director of Public Affairs with AAA. Tiffany, thank you for your time.
Thanks for.
All right. So okay. A lot of folks on the roads and road trips reaching record levels. So what should drivers know regarding travel times, traffic, all that stuff?
I guess I should say, Nick, you haven't left yet, right? Because it's going to be crowded out there, right? Today is actually the busiest day for road travel. So if you haven't left, you're going to be in it, right? I think the big thing to keep in mind is, look, it's going to take you longer to reach your destination. We know that. You mentioned 2.3 million North Carolinians traveling. Of that number, 2 million of them will be doing so by vehicle. We're talking about, 70,000 more vehicles versus this time last year. So it's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of traffic out there. I think the big tip would be leave early. Pack your patience as always, and then make sure you're giving yourself plenty of time to reach your destination. The sweet spot, really, as far as leaving, you've missed it because it was this morning, right? But if you're leaving, tomorrow or any time later in the week, you should just avoid those rush hour times. That's the time when you have a mix of travelers and commuters. That's going to be when you'll see the least amount of traffic, but it's going to be crowded out there for sure.
So, Tiffany, you're going to love this. James, my producer, said that he's in big trouble right now because he doesn't leave until he doesn't leave until after this this evening, right?
Oh, no.
I guess I should just leave now.
Just do the whole thing from the car. Distracted driving, right? No, we don't want you doing that.
Well, Tiffany, in North Carolina, you're talking about historic travel numbers. Why is that? Why are we seeing the surge?
We've been seeing the surge over the last few years, and if Memorial Day was an indicator of what we're going to see for this Independence holiday, it's going to be a busy one. I think the big reason why travel has just bounced back, it goes back to the pandemic. It goes back to restrictions being lifted and all of us being so excited about traveling. And what we're seeing at AAA as far as bookings go, as far as trips go, is that people aren't just, while they're taking the short jaunts to the beach or to the mountains, they're doing big bucket list trips, right? You look at destinations, people are going to see Mickey, they're going to Orlando. We're talking about international destinations. They want to go see Rome. They want to go to Paris. So people are really taking advantage of traveling. They don't want to wait for another pandemic to happen or something like that to put these travel plans on hold. So I think that's the big reason.
Again, a lot of folks on the road, a lot of folks flying. What are some of the most common issues folks face either on the road or when they're flying?
Yeah, so, we've seen an increase, in just about every mode of transportation, planes, trains, automobiles. Everybody is going, to spend this Independence holiday, and they're doing so, just about any mode you can imagine. I think when it comes to airports, we always like to say the rule of thumb is, for a domestic flight to get to the airport 2 hours ahead of time, for international 3 hours. I would actually pad that. Another 30 minutes just to make sure that you're giving yourself plenty of time to get through those security lines. It's just people don't expect. And for a lot of people, they haven't even traveled this year. So this is their first big trip and they get to the airport and they've got a rude awakening. They're going, wait, it's going to take me this long to get through the line. So I think the main thing is to make sure that you're getting to the airport on time. A lot of times we can't anticipate cancellations or delays, but you can do your part by making sure that you get to the airport on time. But yeah, it's going to be crowded. I would also say, as far as road travel is concerned, because you mentioned road trips, you're going to see a lot of congestion around tourist attractions, right? And around your big metro areas, around any kind of tourist attraction. So if you could avoid those areas, it's not easy to do, but if you can avoid those areas, maybe you'll see a little less congestion. But yeah, it's going to be crowded out there for sure.
I'm not traveling this weekend, but I am the type of guy that gets to the airport like 4 hours before my flight. So you will be proud. The folks here are rolling their eyes here in the studio, by the way. I don't know why. Tiffany
Yeah.
Wright, Director of Public Affairs with AAA, thank you for your time.
Absolutely, Nick. You guys stay safe out there.
Oh, you too. All right, guys. You don't have to roll your eyes. All right, it's fine.
What do you do for 4 hours?
You know, I put on a long
What do you do for the 3.5 hours?
You
that you're
put on
waiting?
you put on a long podcast.
Okay.
You put on another long podcast. Go get some food. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. All right.
Pretzel.
You get a pretzel. Get something to drink. Close your eyes for a little bit.
I was about to walk out the room, and then you said you go out 4 hours early. I stopped and had to turn around and ask you about
It's all
this.
good. It's all good. Look. It's not about me. It's not about me.
It is.
Oh man, I'm just trying to help y'all out. Not y'all at home, the people in the room. So there you go. Thank y'all. We're approaching the top of the hour. It's been a busy show. Great to talk with Tiffany Wright with AAA. Hopefully some good advice. It was some good advice, but hopefully you're able to take some advice away from her if you haven't left yet to your destination. All right, so let's check in with the forecast. I think that's pretty important. A lot of folks hitting the road want to know what the weather's like. It was raining earlier. Now the sun's out. Let's check in with meteorologist Majestic Storm.
Turning back to our forecast, it is a gloomy day in Majestic. We still have the chance for more rain later today.
Yeah, we do, definitely. This morning, this afternoon, should start to clear up, though, as we head towards the afternoon and this evening. Look at all the clouds out there for our lunchtime forecast. Doesn't matter where you're watching from, likely you have a lot of cloud coverage. We're seeing that even out there towards Anson County, Lake Norman, alongside Dallas and Monroe. So cloudy skies, but you know what that's going to do? It's going to drop our temperatures today. Yesterday, we topped off at 92 degrees, and today, we're only forecasting 87, so a little cooler because of those thick clouds, but again, not a whole lot of sunshine in the forecast today. Here's our 12-hour forecast. So yeah, we are still watching for a few passing showers, even an isolated thunderstorm or two, but today we are not looking at a severe weather threat. Temperatures stay below 90 degrees, and then you can see as we progress through dinner time and afterwards, this sky slowly start to clear. So late in the afternoon, we do have a smaller chance of seeing perhaps a little sunshine. So hopefully we get that. Hey, if you're up in the mountains today, look at those nice temperatures. 76 degrees out there towards Banner Elk, 78 for Blowing Rock, and 80 degrees as we're looking towards Boone. A little warmer as we're heading towards a foothill. Still staying mainly dry right now, just cloudy. Upper 80-degree temperatures, low 90s for some out there. 87 for your forecasted high today in Hickory. Once we head towards the Charlotte metro area, 87 in Charlotte today, 87 for Gastonia, 92 though up towards Lincolnton, and 94 for our good friends out towards Lancaster. Now if you're watching from Rock Hill, it's going to be also a cooler day compared to the last few days, but I have to tell you, enjoy it while it lasts, because we're going to crank up those temperatures as we're heading towards the later half of our work week, and then of course straight into our 4th of July weekend. So if you're making those plans, maybe you're heading out to go camping, maybe you're just packing up the boat and you're going to have a couple of lake days. Really, the forecast doesn't get much better for us. It is going to feel very summer-like, and if you like those warm temperatures, Climate Prediction Center says, well, they're going to stick around across the Carolinas through the next 6 to 10 days. That takes us all the way through July 10th. So we're bringing that heat. So again, today we're actually seeing those below average temperatures, which is a little out of the ordinary, but enjoy it while we have it. No rain opportunity really as we're looking at Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. Great conditions if you're having a backyard barbecue, but on Sunday we'll start to reintroduce some rain chances. At this point, it doesn't look like it's really becoming widespread until the middle to end of the week, but still several days away. Now this is for us today. Here's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm noticing we'll see less cloud coverage, so again, could see some peaks of sunshine. If you like to take an evening walk, it might just be perfect actually. And then we could still see a few brief heavy downpours between 3 and 6 o'clock, mainly southeast of Charlotte, and then everything will gradually clear out. Here's tomorrow morning, starting out our Thursday with gorgeous conditions, plenty of sunshine, comfortable conditions as well. And again, Thursday is not looking too bad. Now we are keeping a close eye out to the south and to the east, especially out there in Florida. Many of you heading to the beach for the 4th of July, and the National Hurricane Center still watching this area of interest. Now under a 40% chance of seeing some development over the next 7 days. Ultimately, that is going to increase overall rain for them, and we'll eventually get a little rain as well. Remember, we've already had Andrea, Barry. The next one would be Chantal, so we'll continue to keep you up to date with that. Now, if you're staying in Charlotte for the 4th of July I think you're onto something. This is a place to be. Look at that. It's going to feel very summer-like, and the humidity really won't be too bad over the next few days, all because of that passing front that's passing through right now. That again is going to bring in still a few passing showers here and there. No severe weather threat though. 87 for our high today. We're back into the 90s tomorrow. 4th of July looks fantastic. So start making some plans this weekend. It's going to feel really nice as we're heading into the first full week of July.
Okay, so there you have it, folks. A look at the next several days on the weather front. Hopefully you are planning out your 4th of July festivities accordingly. And once again, thanks so much for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus, taking over for Nick Sturdivant for the next hour here. We wanted to check in with some devastating images out of the California area. And this is an incident from yesterday, but we're getting some new information just into the Live Impact News studio today. So this is some previous video of a fire in progress in Yolo County, California. This is just to the, wow. Did you see that explosion there? I mean, this is just to the west of Sacramento. This is a fireworks facility. Now, I mean, you can see those fireworks going off, and it's certainly a dangerous situation. We're learning from authorities out there that 7 people are still unaccounted for. And this is obviously an explosive situation. You could see there was a fire. There were nearby evacuations and power outages because of this. This was reported in the evening. And actually, it looks like we might be getting a live report from here soon. I know that, Jeb, you're watching one of our affiliates' helicopters circling around the scene, and we're starting to see the reporter. So just bear with us, folks. We're kind of trying to get a gauge of what this next shot is, because we've been watching some live feeds to kind of give you a peek behind the curtain here of the current aerial shots. But right now we're actually seeing the camera turned around on the reporter in the helicopter. So bear with us. We might actually be able to bring you a live report from a reporter in just a few moments. So there you can see, that's the other shot we're watching. So that's the live look. And what we're looking at in full here is the previous imagery from yesterday. So that fire and that explosion. So a few more details as we await to see what comes next from our live feed here. This was around 6 o'clock local time there in the Esparto area of Yolo County, once again to the west of Sacramento. There were flames. The fireworks ignited, as you saw, several explosions there. The explosions continuing. Okay, we've got the reporter talking. Let's listen in now.
6 and 7 o'clock last night. It really is quite startling to see this damage, to see all of this from the air. And even just a moment ago, was able to see some active flames still in one of those appearing to be storage containers, and of course that smoldering that I believe that you can see now on your screens. But really, it's shocking to look at. This explosion just decimated, like you mentioned, this entire property. And I think the other thing that I find just so noteworthy is, while yes, this is an agricultural, more rural part of our community, there are still homes that are relatively close by that you can see if you just take a look in either direction from this blast site. There are homes here, and of course our thoughts are just with everybody who is evacuated, and of course with those families who have loved ones unaccounted for at this point. Like you mentioned, 7 people at this point unaccounted for. And you can see now from a wider view this agricultural area that I was just talking about, but the blast site, just, you can't miss it. As you can see, there is just this gray smoke that is still coming from the site at this point. Like you mentioned, there is still an evacuation in place because this area is just too dangerous. And just looking at it, of course it's too dangerous for folks to be in there and to begin really the nitty-gritty of this investigation, because this is still so active. We can see that smoke is coming just from the pool there at just the bottom of a mangled, what used to be a structure. Again, it really is quite impressive in the worst way to look at, as we're able to see this intense damage that this explosion did cause. We were able to see about 2 miles away one of those spot fires that we watched burn yesterday, and then of course surrounding the area you can see that black where it is just charred from the fire that did burn. We can still see a couple of those what appear to be storage containers still intact, as we saw others explode and are not intact. And from where I'm looking, I believe we can still see some active fire burning. If you look right in the middle of your screen, just behind that black smoke, behind to the side at the container, we can still see some fire is still burning. We did hear from officials a short time ago, Esparto Fire and the State Fire Marshal, able to give us some new information today in the hours after. They told us that they're actually monitoring this area remotely just because of how hazardous the conditions are. And looking at these pictures, of course they are hazardous. It is just absolutely horrible to look at, and we're able to just get a view from the sky as they are still asking people to keep a distance away from this site. Another thing that I thought was noteworthy was in this release that just came out from officials, they called this a rare incident, and there's a lot that they need to determine. Were license requirements being met at the state and the federal level? But again, at this point, it's just not safe for them to get in there and to start answering those questions. So we're so grateful that we have this resource that we can bring you a safe look from the sky as to what so many of you all witnessed yesterday on your screens. That was unlike anything I can ever recall seeing in a newscast, watching those explosions and those colorful fireworks shooting up into the air. And this is what's left, this smoldering remnants of what was this fireworks storage facility. Again, it really is quite the sight to see. I'm trying to get a better look here from the vantage point as to see if there's anything else that we can specifically point out, but it really all just looks like rubble, a couple of burned.
Okay, folks, so you can get an idea of the aftermath of that fireworks facility explosion to the west of Sacramento. Once again, from yesterday, the reporter there live right now, checking out how everything looks today, as unfortunately 7 people remain unaccounted for. The property owner of this facility now working with first responders to try to find those folks. I want to turn now to a new live briefing coming into the Live Impact News studio. We have the Pentagon here. The spokesperson, chief spokesperson for the Pentagon, Sean Parnell, is giving a briefing. We're not sure the topics at hand, but we're going to listen in and learn in real time together.
Have any force posture updates at this time in the CENTCOM AOR? Okay, let's transition to ICE and the Department of Homeland Security and our partnership with them. The department continues its important work in securing our borders and supporting the Department of Homeland Security. Approximately 8,500 military personnel assigned to Joint Task Force Southern Border continue to enhance U.S. Customs and Border Patrol's capacity to identify, track, and disrupt threats to border security. Since the Secretary authorized enhanced detection and monitoring on March 20th, Joint Task Force Southern Border has conducted more than 3,500 patrols, including more than 150 trilateral patrols with CBP and the Mexican military. The strong partnership and coordinated efforts between the Department of Defense and Customs and Border Patrol yielded exceptional results between June 28th and June 30th, with 0 gotaways across the entire southern border during that time frame. We have made incredible progress and will continue to work towards achieving 100% operational control of the border. And recently, Secretary Hegseth directed the Secretaries of the Air Force and the Navy to take necessary action to establish national defense areas along the U.S.-Mexico border. The South Texas NDA, administered by the Department of the Air Force, will include federal property on and along 250 river miles of the Rio Grande River. The Yuma NDA, administered by the Department of the Navy, will include approximately 140 miles of federal property along the U.S.-Mexico border near the Barry M. Goldwater Range in Arizona. These will be the third and the fourth designated national defense areas along the border, and will continue to enhance the department's ability to protect the southern border from unlawful entry. The National Guard is also playing an essential role in protecting the U.S. southern border from illegal entry and maintaining the sovereignty, the territorial integrity, and the security of the United States. Over 4,200 Texas National Guard soldiers and airmen on state active duty continue to support Operation Lone Star, and nearly 70 Florida National Guard members are on state active duty as well. They're conducting base camp security at Alligator Alcatraz. In the greater Los Angeles area, approximately 5,000 military personnel assigned to Task Force 51 continue the important mission to protect federal functions, personnel, and property in that area. These federalized California National Guard and U.S. Marines have supported more than 170 missions in over 130 separate locations from 9 federal agencies, including the Drug Enforcement Agency, the U.S. Marshal Service, ICE, and the Department of Homeland Security. Okay, so let's switch gears to the budget. I want to take a minute from the podium today to applaud the Senate on passing the president's One Big Beautiful Bill, and I would urge the U.S. House of Representatives to do the same. This bill's necessary investments in shipbuilding, military ships, aircraft, icebreakers, unmanned systems, artificial intelligence, $25 billion for the development of Golden Dome, all of these things directly help achieve the president's peace through strength agenda, and will help equip our warfighters to protect the homeland against 21st century threats. This reconciliation bill is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to revolutionize our nation's defense capabilities by investing heavily in service member quality of life, including housing modernization, child care, education reforms, healthcare improvements. I mean, all of these things are great, and the department is just laser focused on getting our warfighters the funding they need to execute their mission. Let's talk about recruiting briefly. A strong and lethal military, as many in this room know, requires capable recruits, and we're excited to announce that the Air Force and Space Force have both hit their recruiting goals 3 months ahead of schedule, thanks to President Trump and Secretary Hegseth's leadership. Enthusiasm to serve is at all-time highs. Since November 5th, 2024, the U.S. military has seen the highest recruiting percentage of mission achieved in 30 years. Let's talk EUCOM real quick. Over the weekend, U.S. Air Force Lieutenant General Grinkovich was officially confirmed as the next Supreme Allied Commander Europe and the U.S. Commander of European Command. He officially assumed command of the U.S. military mission in Europe during a change of command ceremony in which U.S. Air Force General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, served as the presiding officer. General Grinkovich relieved General Chris Cavoli, who's retiring from military service after nearly 4 decades. So congratulations to you, Chris, on a successful career. We're also very proud to have Grinch at the helm in Europe. And in closing, before I take some of your questions, I just want to take an opportunity to recognize the career of Lita Baldor, who's retiring after 20 years covering the Department of Defense. I want to thank Lita for her dedication to covering the issues, the operations of this department, and the people of this department in depth. And she's made my job and those who had it before me a hell of a lot more difficult, but we get it, that's her job. To ask those tough questions. So to Lita, congratulations, good luck in everything that you want to do, and thank you for everything that you gave this department. And finally, as our nation commemorates its 249th birthday on Friday, let us never forget that the freedom we enjoy in America is never free. Our freedom is ensured by the men and women in uniform spanning here at home and across the globe who dedicate themselves to its preservation. So let us never forget our fallen who made the ultimate sacrifice. Let us never forget their families who continue to carry that very heavy burden. And as we celebrate the 4th of July with family and friends at backyard barbecues, wherever it is that you celebrate this nation's independence, please remember that the very best of our nation remains forward and on watch. And so thank you all for your patience during what is a longer than normal topper. And with that, I would love to take some of your questions. Rebecca?
Hi, yeah, so obviously with respect to Ukrainian aid, the United States announced that they are going to be withholding certain aspects of aid. Ukraine responded by saying that this is going to embolden Russia. What is the department's response to that argument?
Well, the president's strategic outset with regards to Ukraine and Russia has been one of peace. He campaigned on this when he was asked on a town hall with CNN about that war. He said he wanted to just stop people from dying. And so peace has been the president's highest aspiration. We here at the department support those goals and those missions. But it's important to remember that the stuff that I mentioned in my topper, like what we've done here at the Department of Defense is create a framework to analyze what munitions we're sending where to help the President and the Secretary of Defense make decisions. And so ultimately, our job here at the Department of Defense is to pursue the President's America First agenda and make sure that we achieve peace through strength throughout the world.
Thank you.
How about Olivia?
Thank you. As you said, the Air Force and Space Force hit their recruiting goals 3 months early, and the Navy announced that they did the same a month ago. What does Secretary Hegseth attribute these increases to after the Biden administration saw drops in recruitment and failed to meet those goals?
Well, I think, we recently stood up a recruiting task force here a couple of weeks ago to analyze and look at just these types of questions. Recruiting is a constellation of different things, and one of the things that we recognize here at the department, to answer your question directly, I believe that with President Trump as a commander-in-chief and Secretary Hegseth at the helm here in the DoD, leadership matters, and certainly their leadership and moral clarity as it pertains to certain issues, not just here within the department, but all around the world, has inspired people to want to join and serve this country in great numbers. But as we stand up this recruiting task force, one of the things that I recognized right off the bat was the idea of propensity. And what I mean by that is how we here in this department ask questions about people who might want to serve this country. And if you're an 18-year-old kid, propensity essentially means do you see the U.S. military as a viable career path moving forward? And so in the late 1980s, that number was somewhere between 25 and 27% of the country who believed that service was a viable path forward. After 9/11, we believe that number was somewhere between 25, 27%, fluctuating a couple of years thereafter. But in between, that number has steadily fallen to, I think we're somewhere between only 7% and 11% of this country see military service as a viable career path moving forward. And so obviously, at this department, we recognize that that number is probably unsustainable. And while we have great recruiting numbers now, it might not always be the case. And so one of the things that we're trying to achieve with this recruiting task force is answering the tough question about how do we set the conditions here culturally in this country to have more kids want to serve the country and see it as a viable career path. One of the interesting things about that is the idea of the intersection between propensity and proximity, and the idea that when people are exposed to and see somebody in uniform on a day-to-day basis, their desire to serve this country skyrockets. Something we're up to 50%, that they see military service as a viable career path. And I think over the last 15 or 20 years, while much of the research has borne out that the U.S. military is largely a legacy force, in other words, grandfather served, father served, more likely for their son or daughter to serve, I think that's part of the reason why they're exposed to somebody in uniform. So part of the question that I'd like to answer as part of this, is that the department would like to answer as part of this recruiting task force, is the intersection between propensity and proximity. And if we can get servicemen and women in every community in the country and involved in community events, exposed to our kids in their high schools, whatever, I think that will help us solve our recruiting problem. So I think the Secretary is looking at a constellation of different things to sustain the momentum that we have now. But the reality is that leadership matters, and the President and the Secretary are inspirational leaders. Tara.
Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
So how much did Iran's retaliatory strike against IED kind of persuade the department to look at the stockpiles, because it did take an enormous amount of Patriots to defend that base against the ballistic missiles? And then secondly, on Iran, again, have you had time now to do a deeper assessment of the damage to the nuclear facilities, and have there been any sort of like air patrols or anything like that to gather additional information?
So I'll answer your second question first. Our assessment of the battle damage around Fordo, Nantes, and Isfahan remains unchanged. I mean, we believe, and certainly all of the intelligence that we've seen have led us to believe that those facilities especially have been completely obliterated. And the interesting kind of side point about this, Tara, is that all of the conversations that we've had since Operation Midnight Hammer with our allies all around the world, but certainly also in the region, they say a couple of things. They share our sentiments about the degradation of Iran's nuclear program and the fact that we have degraded their program by 1 to 2 years. At least intel assessments inside the department assess that, and I think their intelligence shares that conclusion.
Current assessments by this department think it's been degraded or delayed by 1 to 2 years?
I think we're thinking probably closer to 2 years, like degraded their program by 2 years. But what we've seen almost, in fact, just universally among our allies, was them congratulating the United States, the President and the Secretary of Defense on that bold operation, and the idea that American action in Iran has set the conditions for global stability. You think back during my time in Afghanistan, when we would do sensitive site exploitations in Afghanistan, something like 20 years ago, almost all of the weapons that we pull out of those sensitive site exploitations were Iranian weapons. Like, Iran has been a major exporter of terror all around the world, and nations the world over have been subject to their terror. So I think that nations all around the world they know that when America is strong and speaks clearly, the world is a better and more stable place. And so I think it pertains to get to your first question here now. Remind me what you asked again.
How much did Iran's retaliatory strike on IED kind of press the department to look at the stockpiles?
Well, we're always assessing, our munitions and where we're sending them. And, part of what we wanted to do here at the department was, again, create a framework. We can't give weapons to everybody all around the world. We have to look out for, America and defending our homeland and our troops around the world. So, that's something that we always do. Both before and after operations, and it's the President's job, along with the Secretary of Defense, to determine how we use those weapons.
Can I follow up on that? You said in your opening, just to Tara's first question, or I guess the second question that you answered first, you said in your opening that this led to the obliteration of Iran's nuclear ambitions. And I wonder if the assessment is not just that you're citing is not that the program is degraded, but that Iran no longer has the ambition to even create a nuclear weapon. Is there an intelligence or assessment that says that?
Well, we believe that sending bombers from Missouri, 37 hours on a mission, not a single shot fired at them, took a very strong psychological toll on Iranian leadership. We also believe that the degradation of the facilities at Fordo, Isfahan, and Nantes degraded their physical capability of constructing a bomb. And it's not just enriched uranium or centrifuges or things like that. We destroyed the components that they would need to build a bomb. And so when you take that constellation of different things into consideration, we believe that Iran's nuclear capability has been severely degraded, perhaps even their ambition to build a bomb. Ultimately, the President has said he's not going to allow them to build a bomb. The Israelis are not going to allow them to have a bomb, and they know that. And I think that factors into their decision-making process.
Is that a final assessment that you're citing there, or is there still more information coming in?
The assessments are ongoing, and every day that goes by, the intelligence picture that we have gets clearer and clearer. And as we get those updates, Courtney, we'll keep you updated. Mike.
Okay.
Okay. Noah.
Could you be more specific about the nature of the pause in weapons being provided to Ukraine? When did it begin? What munitions are being affected here? And then who was involved in the review that you're describing right now? And is that still ongoing?
I can't get involved. I can't go in detail about what weapons were paused and when, and what we're providing and when. Ultimately, the President and the Secretary will make those decisions about what happens with those weapon systems, obviously keeping in mind that the President was elected on an America First platform to put America first. And so our job as political appointees here in the Department of Defense is to provide the President a range of options to do just that.
Is the Pentagon working on a joint fitness assessment test, which is a PT test that all service members would have to take, in addition to the one that they have to take for their services? If so, what will the standards be?
Well, we're currently reviewing that right now, so I don't have any details to provide on that yet, but when we get them, I will let you know.
So you are looking at a possible PT test for all service members in addition to what they have to take?
We're evaluating standards across the board. How about Wallace?
Right. I wanted to ask a question pertaining to Syria. I was going to ask if does the U.S. have plans to continue to draw down the troop presence in Syria, and if so, are they confident that the current Syrian government can successfully keep under detention the 10,000 ISIS fighters currently there?
Well, I mean, certainly the president has talked about expanding our relationship with Syria, and I think we have high hopes there. But right now, we've still got about 1,500 troops thereabouts in Syria, but we're not going to comment further on force posture there. But we're optimistic about the future in Syria, as the president has already said before. Mike.
I do go back to my question.
I
Sorry.
thought I saw you with your hand up.
Yeah. Do y'all believe that the Biden administration, the past 4 years, sort of basically opened up the door to Ukraine and say, take whatever you want, and without much idea to sort of keep control of the inventory? Is that one of the reasons why you want to see what's in the storage and not?
Absolutely. I think that for a long time, 4 years under the Biden administration, we were giving away weapons and munitions without really thinking about how many we have. And I think that this president was elected on putting this country first and defending the homeland, and then you couple that with our national defense strategy and a shift to the Indo-Pacific, and part of our job is to give the president a framework that he can use to evaluate how many munitions we have and where we're sending them. And that review process is happening right now, and it's ongoing. Haley.
Thank you so much. Thanks for doing this, Sean. On Iran, the IAEA chief said this weekend that he believes Iran could begin enriching uranium within months. Does the department disagree with that? Are you saying the secretary does not share that?
Well, I'm not going to comment on anything with the IAEA and Iran, but our assessment of Iran's nuclear program remains unchanged.
Could you also provide an update on the review panel on Afghanistan and what work has been done there thus far?
Yeah, we've got a great team coming together, most of whom will be here in July. And Haley, I think, that's a great question. I just want to say, our strategic outset here for this review, you think back to the Vietnam War and helicopters on embassies, and I got to believe that there were a lot of first lieutenants, captains, majors who witnessed that, who fought in that war and thought, boy, I wish we could have ended this war differently. And some of those first lieutenants, captains, majors, I'm sure stayed in and became 1-star, 2-star, 3-star generals, and then maybe led and commanded in Operation Desert Storm. And I find that interesting because in Operation Desert Storm, there's a clear mission, clear end state, American troops withdrawn when that end state was realized. And I feel like many of those 1-star, 2-star, 3-star generals perhaps retired after Desert Storm, and a lot of that institutional knowledge and that pain that was experienced during the withdrawal in Vietnam was probably lost. And then flash forward 10 years, 9/11 happens, 20 years of war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we find ourselves at the end of the Afghan war in a remarkably similar situation that we were in Vietnam. So the question that I have here, and that the department has, is what happened? Like, how do we as a department make sure that something like in Vietnam and something there again that happened in Afghanistan never happens again? Helicopters and embassies in Vietnam, helicopters and embassies in Afghanistan, it's just not the desired end state that we were looking for in those conflicts. And so how do we get an assessment at the tactical, strategic, and maybe presidential level of questions that were how was intel reported during the withdrawal? How do we structure our report in the micro at the tactical level to answer a lot of the questions that the American people had, like questions like why did we abandon Bagram? How did we end up in Kandahar? All of these questions are the types of questions that we're going to be asking. But ultimately it's about weaving these lessons learned into doctrine. And the idea that maybe we can use this review to reform the way that we evaluate and promote young non-commissioned officers and young officers. Like, for example, if you read the Afghan reports that came out every June, regardless of who the task force commander was in Afghanistan, those reviews were remarkably similar. But the end state was a disaster. So I think, if you think back to my time in Afghanistan as a young commander giving battlefield update briefs as a captain to my battalion commander, if I were constantly saying that my area of operations was a disaster, it didn't have the ammo or troops that I needed to accomplish the mission, the likelihood of me getting promoted was probably not great. So how do we set the conditions here in the department to create a sense of honesty where our officers are reporting what they believe to be accuracy? They're concerned about maybe their area of operations. They're concerned about the truth and maybe not less about their careers. And that's not an indictment on the officers in the DOD. It's just the way that our system is constructed. And so we've got a great team that we put together, many of whom will start in July, where the real work will start. I just had a great meeting with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs about this and how the Joint Staff can help collaborate on this. But I'm very optimistic about where we're going with this review, Haley.
Have you started interviews for this report? Or
Oh, sure, yeah.
What all has happened?
Yeah, I mean, we've done interviews, we've had meetings. I mean, we're getting a lot done. I mean, I feel really good about it. I'll take one more question.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I have two questions. So Iran, China, and Korea. Iran has signed a deal with China to purchase 40 Chinese fighter jets. What are your concerns about the Iran and China military cooperation?
Well, obviously, we're watching that. You know, we're very concerned about that, especially as we look to shift force posture to the Indo-Pacific. But ultimately, I think that, you know, what we're doing here at the Department of Defense, you know, building up our military with historic recruiting numbers, peace through strength. I mean, ultimately, it's about reestablishing deterrence to make our enemies think twice about doing things that we wouldn't want them to do. So
Korea and regarding the reduction of U.S. troops in South Korea, are there any specific plans for reducing the number of U.S. troops in South Korea and changing their rules? And when will the time be?
Well, normally we don't comment on force posture reviews here from the podium. It's something that we always do. But you know, and you've been covering this building for a long time, we've got an ironclad alliance with the Republic of Korea. And we're going to remain true to that alliance. But okay, thanks everybody. So we'll do this again. We'll do this again very soon. We'll talk soon. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Okay, folks, so you heard there a Pentagon briefing touching on multiple topics from the strike on Iran. We heard border activity being discussed. We heard the Pentagon stance on the movement of the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, the reconciliation bill, through Congress. At this point, you saw in the 3 box just a few moments ago that the House is voting on amendments pertaining to this at this very moment. And with that, we want to turn to some breaking news just into the Live Impact News studio. This is regarding another vetoing in North Carolina of a bill that passed the General Assembly. Governor Josh Stein just posted this on X just a few moments ago, talking about his decision to veto Senate Bill 266. We had talked about this before on WCNC Plus. This is an energy-related bill. It would have called for many measures, but one of the highlights we saw discussed with this bill, the fact that it would roll back some of the carbon emissions goals for Duke Energy, and it would also change how purchased power costs are allocated. There was some question, and depending on which side of the bill you were on, it sounded like you had folks who were saying that this would inevitably lower costs, energy costs for customers, while folks on the other side were saying that it would actually increase costs. But the governor, nevertheless, vetoing it, he wrote in part that this bill would force families to pay more so the industry could pay less, and it walks back North Carolina's commitments to reduce carbon emissions. We'll keep you updated as we learn more about any legislative moves that come from the state capitol. But meantime, we watch various feeds here. We talked about the fact that we get new feeds every moment. We got something coming in now from Philadelphia. It looks like we've got the mayor and city officials talking about the impacts of a worker strike that's underway. Could be impacting delivery of essential services in the city of Philadelphia. Let's listen in right now to see what those impacts might be.
Of District Council 33's pay plan to offer again what we refer to as a fifth step. What does that mean? No, you shouldn't come into District Council 33 and immediately hit a ceiling that doesn't allow you to climb a little higher, giving you the benefit to earn more when you've been here a civil servant working hard for many years. That's access to economic opportunity for all, and that's what that fifth step represented to us. Finally, this is something that I haven't mentioned quite often during these conversations, and that is our municipal pension system and our fund. By 2033, the city of Philadelphia is on track. After years of very careful fiscal stewardship that I am very proud to have been a part of long before I became the mayor, long before I became a member of city council, during my tenure as a state representative and chair of the Philadelphia delegation in the Pennsylvania House, that I am proud that we are going to see our municipal pension fund 100% fully funded. That means retirement income security for the men and women of District Council 33 and, quite frankly, all of our municipal unions. And once we do reach that 100% funding of our municipal pension fund, it will free up hundreds of millions of dollars that the city can use to deliver more services to the people of Philadelphia, and that includes every municipal worker who lives and works in the city of Philadelphia. Our defined benefit pension is something that is a thing of the past in many other jurisdictions, but I am very proud of the fact that here in the city of Philadelphia, after you've worked the requisite number of years and you get vested with the city of Philadelphia, we guarantee you an income for life. Not through a DC plan, a defined contribution.
All right, we are going to pivot away from Philadelphia here. Once again, we were hearing updates on impacts to potential essential services in Philadelphia because of a worker strike. If we can come back to that feed, we will. But we wanted to talk about some local updates on the sports front. So we have sports director Nick Carboni joining us here in the Live Impact News studio as the Hornets remain very busy here. And so we're just now seeing another signing. And this is a league veteran, Nick.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the direction the Hornets are clearly taking in a second, Vanessa. But just to get people up to speed, this is the quote-unquote legal tampering period for the NBA, which means teams can legally reach out to agents and player representatives and work out deals. They just can't officially announce them until free agency actually begins July 6th. It was already happening anyway, so they just put a moniker on it of the legal tampering period. So the Hornets have been very busy. We've been in here a lot talking about their moves, and the latest I've confirmed with a league source is signing 11-year NBA veteran guard Spencer Dinwiddie, and I think he brings a lot to the table for this team. He is, somebody that can relieve LaMelo Ball on the floor and come in and take over and run a competent offense, which has been a problem for a while. He's somebody that can get to the bucket. He's somebody that can shoot. His three-point percentage is pretty good as well, and a very smart player and a player who can lead as well. So they've got a whole bevy of guards. We can address that situation and what might be next soon too, but there's a direction here, and I think the direction is this organization wants to compete for a playoff spot this year, compete for at least a play-in tournament spot, that 10 seed in an Eastern Conference that is clearly wide open in the middle, and they want to see what their core or supposed core of LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and who else is in that core looks like in that situation. What is LaMelo Ball's kind of trajectory as a playoff basketball player. They just haven't been able to figure that out because they haven't been there. And I think that the moves that they've made, bringing in veterans, bringing in players who just know what they're doing and have been around for a long time, like Pat Connaughton, Colin Sexton, and now Spencer Dinwiddie, Mason Plumlee the other night as well, is a clear, like, we need some adults in the room to take this team to the playoffs, or at least get close to it, so we can see what we truly have in our supposed franchise players.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good call out in the sense of the diversity of what we're starting to see things shaping up for. I mean, you just alluded to the fact that it really does feel like the team is trying to make something in the near future versus, I think, you know, sometimes fans in general of any sort of franchise might get frustrated with rebuilding years where you're like, okay, well, this is going to take some time. But you feel like they're being pretty aggressive about the near future, right?
I do, with these moves that they've made really since draft night, Vanessa. And this is a new front office in Jeff Peterson. It's his second year leading things. It's a relatively new ownership group that took over from Michael Jordan as majority owners, Gabe Plotkin and Rick Schnall. And the sense is, and Schnall and Plotkin are at most of the games. They saw their team win 19 games in an 82-game season last year. That clearly did not sit well. And I do think that Jeff Peterson, the president of basketball operations, effectively the general manager who's running the front office, in the past when he's been asked, somebody asked him to put it into baseball terms, where is the rebuild? And he said something like first or second inning. Well, he's also said they don't want to skip steps, but as I mentioned in here the other night, they want to take steps forward. And I think, you know, they've maybe skipped a few innings here to try to get, you know, they've got a window of opportunity here with LaMelo Ball on a very big contract and Brandon Miller, an ascending, hopefully perennial all-star in the NBA, to figure out exactly what that core is and who is on it.
Well, it's interesting to see because I also felt like I heard you mention recently, maybe it was yesterday, it's tough to tell just because I think the cycle is moving so fast on all of these developments, but you were talking about how Jeff Peterson also is picking up some picks, if you will, for down the road as well.
Yeah, his cachet of picks right now, it's hard to even find an updated list. The one we used on our draft night special is now, you know, there's more than that because they added a 2029 first-round pick from Phoenix there. In the Pat Connaughton deal yesterday, they got 2 second-round picks, future seconds from Milwaukee, and they go out all the way, you know, through 2032 at this point, and people shouldn't really look at the year of the picks. They should just look at kind of the total bundle of picks, first and second rounders. I think they entered draft night with, including this draft, with like 8 in 6 years for first round picks. So it's okay. So is this what we had, Jeb? Yeah, this is, so add a 2029 first to that, add seconds in 2031 and 2032. They got a future second with Colin Sexton from the Utah Jazz. So a lot of people are looking at the moves they've made over the past couple of days, including the draft, when they drafted a shooting guard in Con Knipple and basically another shooting guard, wing player, in Liam McNeely. Right now, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, what you could call guards. Really allowed 15 players. So they've obviously got to make more room, and they've, you know, got to improve the front court a little bit too. But now you have all this excess in guards at that position, and you have all of this excess in picks. I'm not saying they make a seismic move and use multiple future first-round picks for somebody right now. That may be something they look to cash in on down the road, maybe next offseason. But I think they could use some of those guards that, you know, maybe kind of squeezed out with these recent moves, and some of those second-round picks especially, to go and get a legitimate guy at the 4, a legitimate guy at the 5, because right now those are the positions that are very thin on this roster. So I think everybody's kind of looking at, what are we going to do with all these guards? Well, they're not all going to be here. I mean, some of them are very recent picks. KJ Simpson was a second-round pick last year. I'm not sure what the ceiling is for him, but he's got some talent. Nick Smith Jr. was a first-round pick in Brandon Miller's draft class. He's shown some flashes over 2 years. He's still young. I think he's 21 years old. And, you know, he has shown the ability to shoot and score. So he could be a big trade piece here, too. So I think also, you know, the ability and willingness for this front office, as opposed to the last one, to move off of even recent draft picks that just aren't working out, or you can basically sign over in free agency. I think you're seeing that here, and I think you will see it soon. I think another move is probably coming for the Hornets to use some of these extra guards, use some of these extra future picks to go out and get a 4 or a 5.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I mean, if you could look into the crystal ball, how many more times are you coming into the Live Impact News studio with updates?
Well, I will be in New England tomorrow, so I will not. Yeah, sorry, I'll be eating a lobster roll hopefully this time tomorrow. But Danielle Stein will be here, and yeah, it's fast and furious, this free agency stuff. You know, I'm not sure how many more people they're going to sign off the open market, and I came in here last night twice because they brought Trey Mann back. He's one of the guards that they're obviously going to keep on a 3-year contract. But I think, you know, now they've positioned themselves to make a move to kind of complete the starting lineup, because right now, you know, your power forwards are Miles Bridges, could be a trade candidate himself, very durable, has shown the ability to score, has shown the ability to be efficient when he's not being asked to do everything on the floor. Tijon Salon, who's still got a long way to go in his career to get to where they hope he can be. And then center, you've got Moussa Diabate, who came off of a 2-way contract last year, signed a legitimate NBA contract, and is an incredible rebounder, but he's just 6'9". That can't be your, you know, primary center in the NBA. They drafted Ryan Kalkbrenner, who can do a few things really, really well, but I don't think is your starting center, especially not right now in his first season. Mason Plumlee comes in as kind of a rotational big, so I think center is where they're going to look to make a move, and maybe they have their eye on somebody that's not on the open market that they'll need to trade for, but now, like I said, they have the pieces to go out and make a pretty significant move. Again, I don't think it'll be seismic and NBA shattering. I don't think it'll lead SportsCenter by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it'll be a big deal here.
Well, I mean, I've mentioned this before, being a casual fan. I feel encouraged by what I see as just the casual fan. I'm just curious to see what you would grade this, you know.
This move in particular with Dinwiddie?
Just in general, the overall from the draft onwards.
I think, oh boy, I was not a very tough grader when I taught college courses. Effort is a big thing for me, and I think they're making a lot of effort, and they've picked a direction clearly for this upcoming season, and they don't want to go backwards, and while they don't want to skip steps, so to speak, as a franchise, because they want to be consistent, they are taking steps. So I would absolutely give it a B+. Maybe that's too harsh. I don't know. I liked their draft overall. I've liked their, their offseason overall. It's still a little incomplete, though, right? Like, if it's settled right now, it may not even be a B+, because they're really thin at that center and power forward position. But depending on what happens in the next couple of days, I think we can get you to an A-.
Yeah, very exciting. Well, maybe you keep your phone next to the lobster roll,
yeah,
and then you dial into the Live Impact News studio. I'm just kidding. You enjoy your time off, but we do appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, of course.
Each and every development.
That's just the beginning of my day, so I could be sitting back here in a minute.
Right, exactly. And plus, keep in mind, we're on from 7 to 9 again, Live Impact News, so you come on back.
I will.
Whenever we have updates. Nick, thank you so much.
Yep.
All right, folks, we talked about the fact that we could be popping back with this Philadelphia update. I do still see that on our feeds. They are still speaking. So just a quick reminder, this is city officials discussing potential impacts to essential services as there is a worker strike underway. We'll listen back into this update in progress.
Rate of programs that may be available to you and your family at phila.gov/OST/program-locator. Please be sure to contact the provider directly if you need to check anything different on availability. I also want to reiterate that our Parks and Recreation are moving forward as planned. Summer camps will be opening as scheduled on Monday. Summer camps will be open, and all of those young people that are registered for those camps should attend as normal. There are a few slots still available should somebody be looking for a summer camp opportunity for their young people, so they should check the local recreation center to check their availability. But there will be 25 pools that will remain open that our young people can utilize for some safe and fun cooling off activities, and all of the spray grounds that were scheduled to open across the city and all of the neighborhoods will continue to be open as they have been. And if you're looking for some supportive or you need other prevention type services for your child, your youth, or for a family, I encourage you to call 215-683-347, or that's 683-4DHS. There's a myriad of prevention programs that we can provide services to children and families. As I close, I just want to reiterate that despite everything that is going on in the city, and it may seem a little chaotic right now, it's vitally important to remember our children and youth that are the nucleus of the city. We need them to be safe. We need them to be positively and actively engaged. Please check out all of the activities that we have available across the city for them. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The Department of Sanitation, as Mayor Parker mentioned, provides over 60 locations for residents to bring their trash and their materials, including our sanitation convenience centers. The department is actively monitoring the dumpster locations throughout the city and working to increase capacity as we can. Dumpsters are being serviced multiple times a day. Vendors are replacing full containers with empty ones in order to meet the needs for the capacity. Vendors are navigating challenges such as traffic, tight streets, as you know, in our city, limited parking, which has caused and may cause occasional delays in swapping out those dumpsters. Overflow piles that accumulate near dumpsters are being addressed separately. Our crews are working throughout the day to remove those piles as quickly and efficiently as they can. Staff are continuously assessing the volume and capacity at each site and will relocate dumpsters as necessary based on demands. This is a fluid and ever-evolving situation. We are responding in real time, troubleshooting in real time to ensure that our residents have access to safe and clean sites as best as we can. We urge all residents, as Mayor Parker mentioned, do not place your trash and recycling out on the curb for collection. Avoid illegal dumping. That does continue to create a strain on the limited resources we do have. The Sanitation Convenience Center at Delaware and Weesheaf is now available and accessible to the public without any entry challenges. And we've listened to our residents. We've heard the concerns. Where there are dumpsters that are ill-placed, we are working in real time to relocate those. So do continue to give us that information so that we can respond as quickly as we can. To keep updated on those dumpster locations, when we have had to relocate a dumpster, you do need to go to phila.gov/sanitation. You can also call 311. They'll be able to give you the exact location of those dumpsters. We do thank you for your continued patience and cooperation as we work through these changes.
As you've heard from everybody, this remains a very dynamic situation, and we are managing services in real time. You can always go to www.phila.gov/work-stoppage. That's phila.gov/work-stoppage is the blog with all of these service updates that are being updated 24/7, 365. Mayor.
In closing, let me just say to the people of our great city of Philadelphia that we will make it through this storm, and we will make it through this storm together. I want to thank you for your patience, for your understanding, and knowing that your city of Philadelphia, even in the midst of this strike and the work stoppage, is doing everything that we possibly can and using every tool and resource available to continue providing you, the taxpaying residents of the city of Philadelphia, with the city services that you need and deserve. Right now, I need to thank my team. You don't see them, you usually see me, but they are working around the clock. I want to thank my Chief of Staff, Tiffany Thurman, who is managing all of it on behalf of the office of the mayor. Our two chief deputy mayors, Sincere Harris, who is right now leading the city's negotiation efforts with District Council 33, and Chief Deputy Mayor Vanessa Garrett Harley, who you just heard give us an update about our young people, along with all of the cabinet members that you heard from today and those who continue working. And to to the City of Philadelphia employees who are not a part of District Council 33 and are not a part of the work stoppage, who right now are doing everything that you possibly can to continue ensuring that our service delivery is sound and is as efficient as it possibly can be under these circumstances. I want you to know that your mayor sees you. I appreciate you, and I am grateful for the work that you all are doing. Nothing is more important to me now than making sure that your public health and safety remains my #1 priority, and that we continue as a city to do everything that we can to reach a fair and fiscally responsible agreement with the hardworking men and women of District Council 33. Thank you, and now I'll take any questions.
Mayor, how many questions do we have?
We want to take 3 because we want to get back to a briefing. Yes.
Managing Director Teal mentioned we need the residents, we need the workers, but we need the visitors too. This is a big tourism week normally in Philadelphia. Yes. There's probably people out there who say, I don't know if I'm comfortable crossing a picket line if I come. Maybe my Independence Day visit to the historic city should be held off. What do you say to the people around the country that are looking at these headlines around the nation now?
Let me first just say this to you. Anyone who is scheduled to come and visit the city of Philadelphia during the 4th of July, Independence Day, don't you dare decide that you are not coming to Philadelphia, 6th largest city in the nation, birthplace of democracy, to celebrate Independence Day. We will be on the Parkway, engaged in our activities with Wawa Welcome America that we do on an annual basis. We're going to make sure that all of our residents and our visitors and anyone in attendance, that we have an amazing time. We will also make sure that our environment is safe. You just heard from our police commissioner. And again, public health and safety is our #1 priority. So if anyone is trying to use this strike or work stoppage as a reason to not visit the city of Philadelphia and be with us on the Benjamin Franklin Parkway for the 4th of July, they've given you an excuse. But we're going to have an amazing time, and we want you all to be joining us. I'm going to ask Giselle Jones, our city representative, if she has any comments.
You said it all, Mayor. We all are very excited for this 4th of July. Our residents, Philadelphians, businesses, visitors, all deserve to have some fun times in their lives while we have so many trying things going on all around us, the whole country. This is what we do. Philadelphia is a town that puts on big events, and we do it really well. We are prepared. We've been prepared. You don't have to get ready when you stay ready. This team, all of us together, we do our very best. We will put on this event. Please come out, bring your family, your friends. As the mayor said, don't cancel your plans. We have a lot in store for you. LL's coming, Jasmine's coming, JoJo's coming, Alvarado Diaz is coming. There's something for everybody to do. It is not a day to sit home. It is a day to celebrate your country, our birthday. So we're going to clean up after we party, and you won't even know we were there the next day. Well, I'll take not the next day, but since a couple of days, it'll be, a little longer than normal, but I assure you it will have been worth every moment that you spend with all of us on the Parkway.
And just seeing Ms. Foreman and then Lauren, and then that'll, if anybody else has, if we have time for one, but.
Lee, did you say Foreman?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor Parker. At yesterday's press conference, the city said it was looking to hire private trash haulers to remove trash from drop-off sites. What is the status of that, and is the administration looking to hire private contractors for any other tasks?
Let me just say to you, and this is another reason why I know we are the most amazing city in the nation, and why I need to say thank you again to residents and business owners in the city of Philadelphia. We have received an outpouring of support and an interest in anyone who has resources that can potentially help the city of Philadelphia during this time of crisis. And we are employing the supports of as many people as we possibly can to help us through this very challenging time. So Philadelphia, again, I want you to know we're using every resource available to help us get through this challenging time while we remain right now at the table in conversation with District Council 33 so that we can reach a fair and fiscally responsible contract. But for those who have reached out and are providing some supports to the city of Philadelphia to help us during this very difficult time, we say thank you. Next question. Next. Next question.
Mayor, you described why you think that the offer that you put on the table is a good one. But for folks watching and wondering where things go from here, are you willing to be flexible to bring this to a resolution?
Let me say to you, and I want to be absolutely clear, our negotiating team, Lauren,